Hey, I promise not to waste your time. If you have done business programs in the past or worked with marketing agencies, that is not what this is. This isn't Marketing 101 talking about colors and logos, and it is definitely not vibe or whatever that means. This is about making money for your business. And these videos are essential content that we have found to be useful to hundreds of clients and has been refined by our team that has gotten our clients billions of views. It's also how we scaled Viral Coach, like this exact strategy, to several $millions per month in revenue, and the same marketing strategies that we are actively using today. It is designed for high-performing business owners, so I promise I will respect your time. But at the same time, this is also essential training material to work with us one-on-one. So this is the context that you need to actually get the most working directly with my team. So please be respectful of their time and watch these videos so that you and my team are all on the same page. Here's what you can expect from us. First, if you've looked through these videos, you might have noticed kind of looks a little sparse. You might have been expecting to be waterboarded by hundreds and thousands of hours of training material, because when you have a really big goal, especially for your business, you expect to need a lot of stuff to get to that big goal. But I think what you're really needing is results, not a bunch of content to consume. So with that in mind, these videos are made specifically to be as short as possible so that you can actually go through them and then go do the more important stuff, which is the actual work. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to exclude the details and nuance because I think that's super important to social media. But because social media strategy varies so much, niche to niche, and the type of content you're going to be doing, that what we've seen to work best is just asking your account manager about your specific scenario and then having them give you a really specific answer that solves your specific problem instead of watching hundreds of general videos trying to find some bit of guidance. So these videos are meant to give you a really good understanding of social media as a base so that you can ask the right questions. Because honestly, there's no cookie cutter program or solution or video that's going to work for everyone to get millions of views. If there were, we'd all have millions of views already and be super rich and famous, right? Like there's no secret trick, there's no hashtags, there's no viral trend that is going to solve all of your problems. You might get lucky doing some of those trendy things, but luck has never built a business worth owning. So instead, let's set some expectations of what we're actually doing here. We're going to be learning how to make the best content possible so that you can win regardless of what platform you post on or regardless of what the algorithm is favoring this month. We're not studying the algorithm looking for some kind of hack or secret trick. We are studying human psychology, which unlike algorithms does not change week to week. So once you learn these skills of communication on video, you're going to be able to succeed on every single social media platform. But at the same time, learning everything there is to know about human psychology and how to leverage it on video is not a super simple thing to do. Like there's a lot of trial and error involved. There are a lot of individual skills that need to come together to create a complete and successful outcome. And if your desired outcome is millions of views, something that very few people in the history of mankind have ever accomplished, by the way, you are going to need a lot of skills. It might take a couple of months to get those kinds of results. And I only mention this because I've seen it before, where people come in, they'll pay for consulting or they'll pay for marketing or hire an employee, or they'll run into a single problem with whatever strategy they've tried to pursue. They can't solve it right away, and so they just give up on the strategy altogether. And this goes against the entire concept of owning a business and building something worth owning. And so if you're like, wait, you're not going to make me super rich and famous in a couple months with no effort or risk to me at all? If that's you, leave right now. Like, get out, email support for a refund, tell them, I don't want to be good. They'll know what that means. Leave. And I know no other business owner is going to tell their customers that what they're about to do is hard because they care about making the sale and keeping the client. That is not me. I'm not here to sell you. I don't care. I'm here to make you good. I'm here to get you results. And if that's what you are after, I'm glad we're on the same page. If not, leave. Because it is actually going to be difficult. If we're trying to grow a business, if we're trying to influence millions of people, that's hard. That takes time. That takes a lot of effort. And while I'm being brutally honest, you can get all this information for free on YouTube. I'll be honest, that's how I started. It took me about 5 years of gathering free information on YouTube before I got my first million views. But it was completely free. It was just on YouTube. So if you want the free thing, you can go watch the free video that'll tell you hashtags are good. And then you can watch the free video that tells you hashtags are bad. And then you can spend years testing, like I did, to find the truth and understand the nuance of why both of these videos can be true. Or you could just pay for a shortcut like a real business owner would and get the outcome years earlier, like I wish I did. The only thing I'm here for is to save you years of effort, searching through all the fluff, trying to figure out how to do this and just actually tell you what works with your specific context, shortcut those years of experience for you. Because personally, I've grown my company with social media. We have had clients that post their first video with us, have that video get 5 million views. The next day they get hit up for a bunch of interviews. They're in the news. They make tens of thousands of dollars, 48 hours after their very first strategy call with my team. That actually happened just recently. But at the same time, that person, that example that I just told you, had 6 years of experience on social media, literally thousands of failed videos before we stepped in. So it's not that they skipped the learning process. It's not that they took this massive shortcut and that they were successful immediately. It's that they spent 6 years learning and practicing. And then when they finally made the last few tweaks with my team, everything just worked. But we didn't skip that learning process altogether. They just did it by themselves. And most of the time, there is some trial and effort involved. There's no cookie cutter program that is going to tell you exactly what to do and get you the exact results that you want. There's going to be a lot of trial and error. And that's okay, because we are here to help you discover the gaps and create that plan for where you want to be and how to get there. But I'll be honest, the more you know at the start, the faster you're going to see results. For example, if you're really good at presenting on stage, you're probably going to sound great on camera. If you're really good at photography or videography, you're probably going to get the studio set up in minutes. If you're good at writing, you're probably going to crush the scripting part that we do. If you're really good at what you do professionally, and if you've just been in your industry for decades, podcast style content is going to be amazing for you. We have solutions for each one of these skill sets. If you're good at business, you probably could make thousands of dollars from just a couple hundred views on your videos. You don't even need to go super viral. But if you're not good at any of those things, like that's fine too. We have plenty of time to get through it. A lot of business owners come to us with no experience on social media whatsoever. That's what we've built our business around. But as long as you put in more effort, because yes, you will have to put in more effort than the people that are already good, because you are not yet good. Depending on how many steps you've taken before getting to this, you might have more or less work to do than the average person, but each step builds on each other. So just like you don't go and learn calculus and then suddenly hate your first grade math teacher because what they taught you, basic arithmetic was baby stuff compared to this cool new calculus thing, you know that you need the basics before you go do the complex thing. Like this is either going to be the first step in the right direction for you or the very last piece of the puzzle that you need to have the whole picture make sense. And either way, it's going to be what you make of it. I promise no matter where you're starting from, my team can help a lot, but your ability to execute on this is either going to make you millions of dollars or it's going to make you feel like this whole social media thing doesn't work for anyone at all, ever. And that is the biggest difference between our clients. We have worked with billionaire clients that come in. They single-handedly complete 2 months of our program in a matter of 48 hours. They post a single video that drives hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue. It's truly impressive. And people like that are really successful at everything they do, because that's what successful people execute like. But if you're not there yet, that is totally okay. Let's go change that. So the entire strategy of Viral Coach can be boiled down to nailing quality and then maximizing quantity. And we can actually look at it as an equation where the quality times the quantity equals the result. So it's not just one of these, it's a very careful combination of the two. So you gain followers with high quality content and you lose followers with low quality content. And you accelerate the process of either gaining or losing them with quantity. So if you post a bunch of good stuff, you get a bunch of good followers and engagement and hopefully business revenue. But if you post a bunch of mediocre stuff, you actually lose followers, you'll get bad engagement, and you'll end up making less money simply wasting your time for even posting in the first place. For example, one of our clients came to us only generating 13 followers per post on social media. Now that might seem like a lot to some of you, where you just post a free video and you get 13 new people following you, but his team was spending 132 hours per month dedicated to this effort. And they had spent months trying to make this work. And it made absolutely no sense at that rate of growth. Posting twice per day would have him reaching his goal in literally 100 years. That's what the math backs out to, all while paying a team thousands of dollars every single month to be able to get there. And the strategy that we moved him to actually has him averaging over 100,000 views per video on Instagram alone now, and over 200 followers per video. And the core of the strategy was actually by making a third as many videos. So he started just decreasing the total output. He decreased the quantity, but he increased the quality. Every single video was way better. They were literally working 20 times better. And we spent literally 3 times longer scripting every single one of these videos out. But then once we had that dialed in, once we were able to really understand what worked on the quality side, we were then able to crank up the quantity and get him back to posting 2-3 times per day. And that is when his business really started to scale. Just a few months later, he has over 100,000 followers. He's growing faster than ever before. And he's one of our best success stories. So rather than pushing tons of mediocre content through the pipeline, which we've had clients ask us to do, which will leave you feeling like you did so much work and you actually got nothing out of it. Our goal instead is to spend a lot more time on every single piece of content at the start. We're going to dial in the quality first, get the systems to where they need to be, and then once we have that figured out, we can really crank the quantity as much as you want, because that's when the business has started to scale. But we take this approach because this is how social media works right now. Years ago, if you had millions of subscribers, it was almost guaranteed that every single video you'd put out would be getting hundreds of thousands of views. But since about 2020, your reach on social media has changed to now become only about as good as your most recent post. So if someone with 1 million subscribers posts a bad video, it's not going to get pushed to any of his 1 million subscribers because it's bad. On the other hand, if someone posts their very first video with no followers, but it's an amazing video and they 100% nail the delivery, they have a chance to get tons of views despite not having a massive audience prior. And this change in how social media works has really made a lot of content creators salty. A lot of big business owners that have established brands, they're mad about it because they spent years building up their following. And all of that time building up their following has been wasted because now they still have to make a good video if they want to get views, just like the new guy. And while I do think that's true, I see it absolutely as a good thing because it levels the playing field and it puts quality and quantity over everything else. It doesn't matter how much tenure you have. It doesn't matter how many people know you in the space. If you can't show up well today, it's irrelevant. And with billions of views of experience behind us doing exactly this for our clients, we are very excited to compete on that. Now, the tricky part here is that quality is subjective, and it's not your opinion that matters. It's the audience's opinion that determines whether more audiences see it. You can't just improve video quality by using a better camera and expect to be super famous. You can't just pay a whole bunch of money to someone and have them make you super famous. And depending on the piece of content, having higher production quality or a big team around you makes it look higher produced, almost like a TV commercial. And that actually could result in even less viewership and worse engagement because audiences on social media are generally a lot more cautious over material that looks far too promotional. And we'll go into the details about what quality actually means on each platform and what your audience thinks is high or low quality later. But first, we need to talk about what the content that you're going to be making is actually going to be about. Hey, listen, this is Daniel from the future. Here's the mic sync. You're not going to hear from me again. This is the only message that you're going to get on this uninterrupted course. But the message is important because I'm from the future. I know more than you, or at least more than myself that's filming this video. Here's what I wanted to say. This entire course might be great, might be fine, but there's even better stuff that accompanies the course. What am I talking? We got a whole bunch of stuff. I'm talking PDFs, I'm talking assets, I'm talking a bunch of additional tutorials, stuff that you can just throw your team and they'll get it done. All tools, someone said tools, software, custom software, by the way, a whole bunch of stuff that you can get in addition to the actual video modules. And then actually a whole bunch of other course pieces, depending on when you're watching this. We're launching whole bunch of stuff, basically on how I built my business from scratch to the multiple $1 million per month that we make on social media. I intended this to be a multi-part series, and you can find almost all, if not all those parts, already on Viral Coach, the school site that we got, the school community that we got. I don't know why I said it's a site. They're making fun of me. You're going to go back to watching the rest of the video, but just know you're missing out if you're only watching here on YouTube and you don't actually get in the community and get access to all the other stuff that we did specifically for this launch. That's all I'm doing. Turn it off.
Wait, you gotta do the outro.
That's the outro.
That's the outro? What's the intro then?
The intro was that there's no outro. That's all they're going to... Should you plan the content of your videos out before filming it, or should you just get on camera and talk off the top of your head about whatever comes to mind? Both of these are actually decent strategies, and just like any other marketing strategy, you need to have a strategy for which one to choose. My goal is to share what we have learned from my team's combined decades of experience on social media, now thousands of clients that we've helped and been able to learn from ourselves. And just to be clear, these strategies aren't just pulled from my experience getting millions of views across platforms, but all of my team's experience working with all of those clients, over 100 million followers across platforms. And that's why I have an extreme amount of confidence telling you this, that they will work if applied correctly. So just like you plan word for word, everything that you put on your website, for example, or what you would say on a billboard, or plan to talk about on a stage before you give your presentation, you should also probably be planning your content, maybe even scripting your content out word for word on social media. Otherwise, potential customers are going to look you up on social media, see a low effort video that you posted with no thought, and they are going to attribute your lack of effort and how you present yourself on social media to be congruent with how you do everything else in your business. And that's why clients who are a little bit more established on social media already, what we usually do on day one is look at their existing content and just delete stuff. We just clean up their social media of anything that isn't congruent to their brand. If it doesn't feel professional, we get rid of it. If it potentially represents them in a bad or less than ideal way, we nuke it. And really, that's just putting your best foot forward to potentially millions of people. And there needs to be some planning and consideration around that. And one of the most important things you could do to getting the outcome of a good first impression with your audience is understanding what good first impression means to you and your business. One of the easiest ways to do that is just by looking at what other people are doing and seeing how they have positioned themselves on social media. So either your competitors or people in related industries that are successful on social media, you should pay attention to what they are doing and model their best practices. Model what their profile picture looks like. Model what their profile setup looks like. What kind of videos do they make? Do they pay attention to really detailed scripts, or do they just go off the top of their head on everything and make it feel more grounded, more connected to their audience? And if you don't have competitors, potentially pay attention to what other type of content your audience is already watching on social media. Because if your audience breathes air, there is a 70% chance they're on social media, meaning they already consume some kind of content. It is your job, if you're trying to succeed in marketing, to deeply understand what that is and meet them where they are at. A really successful example of this is actually one of our clients, Amanda Custer, who runs 4X for Women. Her group is for women, so a lot of moms, and her most successful content leans on her being a mom and creating content that ideal audience would want to watch, whether or not she mentions her financial services business. But once she has that ideal audience's attention, moms, she does mention what her company does and how they serve that exact demographic. It creates a massive opportunity to take all of those eyeballs that she's able to reach very efficiently and then push them to her business. But if you have no idea what your goal is with content, or who you should be targeting, or what kind of content they like to consume, or what type of content you want to make, it is going to be really hard to get this hypothetical goal outcome of good looking content or good first impression. Hard to get that by accident. But understanding what type of content moves the needle is dramatically going to influence the results that you get from that audience and the amount of success you see with your content. And having seen results of hundreds of clients is informed why we have so much material focused, especially in these videos, focused around planning your content out. Because before we actually do the work, I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to actually plan, to research, to strategize, to understand what you're going to be doing for the next several months. Abraham Lincoln once said, "Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree. I'll spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. And if you don't believe me or Abe Lincoln, totally fine. You will believe me once you are either very successful or find out when you are struggling to make it work." So while we're planning out our content, it is helpful to understand how the most successful people on social media plan their content. I call it the effortless content continuum. And you can enter at any point in this continuum here with any type of content, and you will just start with whatever your strengths are and then pull content through the entire rest of the continuum up or down. So if you're really good at long form talking head videos, start there and then use that to inform what your written short form is going to look like. Or if you're really good at written short form content, use that to inform what your long form content is going to look like. And this is what some of the biggest creators' core strategy is on social media. For example, Alex Hormozi, he posts tweets on the X platform, very short form written content, and then turns 100 of those tweets into a single hour-long YouTube video. So instead of having to create new ideas, he just takes a lot of the ideas he has in one type of content and reformats them for the other. So maybe you do really well with podcasts or having long, in-depth conversations. That's great. We can cut those up into shorts for posting on short form video platforms. That is Gary Vee's entire strategy. Or one of my friends, Vivian, your rich BFF, who crushes on short form video. She takes most of those 60-second talking points that are very successful, like she'll get millions of views on them, on short form platforms about how to save on travel. Then she'll package all of those up into a single long form video that is 30 minutes long on how to save money traveling. And I'll show examples on how to do this at every single step later, but you can think of each stage as progressing someone deeper and deeper into knowing you and your business and building a relationship with them. And as they spend more and more time with you, watching longer and longer form pieces of content, they're going to build more trust. The more time you can spend with your audience, the more trust you're going to be able to build with them, either through them reading years worth of your short tweets or a couple hundred of your short videos, or watching a dozen long form videos, or listening to a couple hours worth of podcasts. All of these build trust just on different levels, and there are advantages to each of them. So one of my favorite styles of content right now is actually short form video. This is where I recommend most business owners start for several reasons. One, you can turn around 20 to 30 shorts if you sit down for a single hour-long interview. So it's a very low time commitment relative to the total output, which is about a month's worth of content. And you also have massive organic distribution potential there. But if you can also do this at a high level of quality, and you can present yourself professionally on camera, put a good foot forward, you can look and sound good on camera, communicate more professionally than you otherwise could in a written piece of content like a tweet or an email, because you also get to have some tone and inflection there. It's an easy way to communicate really complex things to your audience. It's also relatively an untapped market. Like in most industries, there are only a few really famous and established people. For example, lawyers, accountants, financial advisors, we work with a lot of those. And despite being established industries, literally being around for thousands of years, all of the most famous people are still super new on social media. There's only a handful of them with over 1 million followers. And compared to formats like long form written content, because most people in these industries do send emails and they do write blog posts, those are usually way more competitive and generally less interesting to prospective clients because there's so much material around there than organic social media content because it's new and untapped. Another example is business coaches. There are literally millions of business coaches out there with Twitter accounts just using ChatGPT to write single sentence posts at a clip of like 20 to 100 posts per day, spamming their feed. And they are trying to compete with millions of other posts per day from other people in their exact space saying the exact same stuff. It is impossible to win on quantity. But on social media, there's only a few business coaches that command 99% of the entire market, leaving an awesome opportunity for another new competitor to come in, do it really well, and gain a lot of market share with a new perspective. I also don't recommend long form videos for beginners that are just starting out because the level of competition that exists on YouTube is much higher than on short form platforms. It's not even close because YouTube as a platform has a decade head start on short form video platforms like TikTok. And the really big players like super rich influencers and billion-dollar companies, they've already entered the market for long form video and become really well established on YouTube. And when you're competing for views against some of the most famous people and most well-funded people in the world, you are almost always going to lose. But on short form, that isn't very much the case because it's a newer platform. The bigger companies are just now starting to figure things out, and you still have an opportunity to gain market share for attention for the next few years. But in the end, in 5 or 10 years down the line, expect the exact same thing to happen in short form that did to long form. The players with deep pockets are going to enter the space. They're going to figure out how profitable it is. They're going to establish a foothold for themselves, and they're going to make it incredibly difficult to compete. I also prefer short form for beginners right now because it is so much easier to pivot to something when it doesn't work out right away. So if you have a short video that gets no views, or maybe it got like 100 views, you are only out the 30 to 60 seconds it took to make. That's no big deal. You have another one going live tomorrow. You could post a second one today. But with long form, you could spend hours scripting, an hour filming, a week or two editing, thousands of dollars to get help with all this with staff, and the video could still bomb. It could get like 50 views. And then you're going to be out another week's worth of time, if not more, thousands more dollars to test the next video, hoping it does better. And the feedback loop is just so much longer and not really congruent to learning on long form social media platforms. Not to say that long form doesn't work, of course it does. My team is making a massive effort right now, specifically on long form. But we just transparently are spending tens of thousands of dollars a month only to put out one video or a couple videos a week. It is a massive commitment that if I didn't have the experience on short form first, I even couldn't afford the long form stuff. So until you're in a similar position where you can very comfortably burn several $100,000 a year, I don't think it's worth the effort. And there's a much easier ROI specifically on short form. But if the video style content doesn't come naturally to you whatsoever, you can start anywhere on this continuum and transform what you are comfortable in saying from writing into short form content that is very easy to make with very little additional effort. So with written short form, this is anything that's like a tweet style post, anything that you see on X or Threads, which is the Instagram version, or even short answers to community questions or comments that you respond to. Maybe you get emails from prospective clients. If someone asks you a quick question, give a response via text, or maybe even product FAQs that you answer. Each one of these could be short form written pieces of content that you make, and you can just post them. But then what you would also do is take the thing that you typed up and do a 15-second response with a short form video. It doesn't have to be super professional. It doesn't have to be a complete thought. It can be very concise, especially if you have the context of answering someone else's question written in the caption. Now that's how you'd adapt written short form. Moving down the list, written long form is something like an email or a blog post. If you have any of this material already made, it can easily be rewritten into your speaking voice and then delivered on camera as a short. You could also repurpose it as a carousel post on Instagram, keep it to a couple hundred words or so, but also add images and graphics to communicate the information more visually. And because you've got more total words to work with, you have the opportunity to use storytelling and give more value there. Now, getting into the actual videos here, short looping reels is just like written content. So a short or a long form written post, but then you add a visual, something like a short looping video of your work environment or what you're actually doing. And then potentially also an audio element like a trending song or a voiceover. But the content here is either very short primary text and a long caption, or long primary text and a short caption. So a little bit of words in the video and a long caption to go with the video, or the inverse. And you're still leaning on the writing more than the video part with this type of piece of content, but now you're at least posting a video, which will get you the distribution of a video, which could actually just be like a recreated version of the top performing email you've ever sent, just summarized with a couple of bullet points, text on screen, and then keep the entire email copy as the caption of the video. These are really great for testing and building new audiences because they can have great organic distribution on social media, but it doesn't actually require any of your time to like create dedicated new content. You're just taking what already works in your emails or your blogs and putting it up in a video format. Unfortunately though, I don't recommend it as an exclusive strategy. It's not gonna really do very much to be able to build trust because it's hard to trust a wall of text, just like it's hard to trust an email. And there's a reason why short form video, especially founder-led videos, are so much more successful. But if you can add your personality or some credibility to the video, like you see some of the biggest entrepreneurs doing with photos of them speaking on stage or videos of them working with their team in their business, and then just add the text on top of it, it could help you stand out a little bit more. What we're very confident doesn't work is just a very boring wall of text in front of very boring stock footage. Trust me, our clients have tried that. It feels way too corporate and there's no results from it. Moving down the list, short form talking head videos. This is actually the bread and butter of what we teach and the whole reason why I just explained it makes it better and easier and have a higher ROI than all of the other options right now on social media for this list. Next, long form talking head is often a YouTube video anywhere between 10 and 30 minutes long. And you can have short form pieces of content that actually inspire those long form videos, like stitch them all together. For example, one of Alex Hormozi's biggest videos is just a bunch of tweets that he reads out loud and provides a little bit of context to each one. Another one that's had a lot of success with this strategy is actually Naval Ravikant's biggest videos, which is his most popular body of work on the entire internet. And it's just a 3-hour-long audio-only podcast. Whereas that type of content usually wouldn't get very good organic distribution. The video has millions of views because it's actually based on his most popular series of tweets called How to Get Rich. And they are very well known by a very large Twitter community. So the tweets did really well, but this 3-hour-long video, which was based on the tweets, builds way more trust because they get his narration and additional thoughts in addition to the original content that is proven to be very successful as tweets by themselves. So it's just really taking one successful type of medium. If you truly believe that it was successful, for example, if you know your emails rock, adapting it to another type of medium and just experiencing that same success all over again. But long form videos, I will admit, are harder because the YouTube algorithm is more competitive, like we talked about. It requires a lot longer of a time investment than short form videos, and the organic distribution for long form content is a lot more competitive than short form. Whereas you could post a short and have it get 1,000 views. If you spent 100 times the effort and made a long form video on a similar topic, you could be left with 1/100th of the results. And even 100 views, like honestly on YouTube on a brand new account, is very good for a result. But in addition to that, if you're making a video for YouTube and it's only published on YouTube, you're limited to one platform, platform, whereas with Shorts, you can post across multiple different platforms, YouTube, but also TikTok, but also Instagram, but also Facebook, but also LinkedIn, but also whatever next comes up. And for most people, unless you already have a large YouTube audience or an audience on whatever other platform that you could push to YouTube, you probably won't see an ROI on long form YouTube for a very long time. Next on the list is podcasts, similar to YouTube in that they often have a video accompanying them, but the focus is on what is being said and not as much as what is being shown on the video. These often take an hour or more to film. They're posted as an audio episode on Apple Podcasts, at Spotify. They have almost no organic distribution on those platforms. So there's no like scrolling for you page for new podcasts. They don't get pushed to viewers as soon as you post them. So unless you have a really large audience somewhere else that you are directing to the podcast to get the views, or you already have a podcast with thousands of very active listeners, your podcast, if you're posting the first episode, won't get any views. And if you can get a network deal or drive a large audience to the podcast, it can be great for building long-lasting relationships with listeners who listen to hours and hours of your content all the time, getting recognition from very large brands because those audiences that you build on podcast are very sticky. But getting to that point is really difficult. I'll be honest. One of my good friends, Austin Hankowitz, runs a podcast called the Rich Habits Podcast. They were #1 on Spotify's business charts multiple times in a row, and every month they're one of the biggest shows on Spotify. And so Spotify, because they're a big show, often pushes their show to new users on their homepage. But before that podcast, he had millions of followers across platforms, tens of thousands of paying newsletter subscribers. He partnered with another amazing entrepreneur, Robert Krook, also millions of followers even before they created the show. And so they do really well with the podcast now, so it absolutely can work. But to get into podcasting with no experience and expect the results that they had with none of their previous audience, absolutely not going to happen. And then lastly, down here on the list, we have long form presentations. This will be the most time consuming and also the most valuable media that you could possibly create. Training videos like this, webinars, speaking on stage, anywhere where you have the audience's undivided attention for potentially hours on end. There's often very little organic distribution for this type of content, but it is high value for the audience that does see it. And we have moved content from all across this continuum. We've taken some of our best performing emails, turned them into trainings. We have taken some of our best trainings, turned them into high performing short form and long form videos. Now, a complete social media strategy, of course, has all of these in place, but it's not just one or the other. And you can't just do the easiest piece of content here and expect to be really successful everywhere else. But specializing in just the hardest ones is also going to be really difficult because it's going to take you years to see traction and justify the time and effort. And it's not very realistic for most business owners to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars over years just to see some kind of return, hopefully. Like, that's not my expectation for you. And so generally, I recommend starting wherever you already have some content made, either emails or tweets or presentations, and using that to inspire content through the middle. But I recommend being in the middle because, again, it has the highest ROI potential right now. And I understand this can be intimidating if you're starting with nothing, because there's tons of options. There's like a million things you can do. But once you start just somewhere, it can be easy to keep the momentum going because any content that you do have can be repurposed into 2 or 3 different styles. And then that content can be pulled into 2 or 3 other styles or just new topics that are tangentially related. And as you learn what your audience likes, this entire process of running through this continuum is going to get easier and faster until you eventually just never run out of ideas and have a long list of videos that you want to get around to making and are actually inspired to do so. So now that you understand the different types of content you can make, we're going to look at the effortless content continuum as different stages of the funnel. So the short form stuff is generally going to be more top of funnel, really good at getting views, but it doesn't build much trust. And the long form stuff is generally going to be more bottom of funnel, good at building trust, but the opposite is that it's difficult to get views on. And we need to consider what type of content you should make and what the ratio should be for top and middle and bottom of funnel content. And it really depends on what the goal for your content is. Like, I can give some rough guidelines so you know what kind of percentage to shoot for, but this is going to require adjustments as you go. And it's not going to be a strategy that you put in place once and then forget about it and never revisit. You should always revisit the strategy for how much top versus middle versus bottom of funnel content you should be doing. And it's based on how your content performs. So if you want to prioritize ROI from the start, it's really important to know the level of trust that your audience needs to purchase and how many customers you need to get to enough of an ROI, and really build your strategy around getting the audience to that level of awareness and trust first. So for product-based offers like golf clubs or tiny homes or handmade soaps, we've had all of those clients, you really don't need to build much trust at all with your audience to buy. In most cases, you just need to demonstrate your product. You need to show them, like, here's how it works. and the product is going to sell itself. In this case, you will just want to get in front of as many people as possible. So you're going to be focused on top of funnel goals for your content first. On the other hand, for professional services like accountants, lawyers, doctors, you are going to need to build a lot of trust. So you are going to need to make more middle and bottom of funnel content first. So I wanted to provide some examples here and talk through some strategies for each so you can get a very tactical example. If you're a big business with a consulting or a service-based offer and a lot of followers already, a goal of increasing your revenue, and you're already posting about 60 times per month, the ideal ratio for you is probably going to be around the 80-20 principle. About 20% of your content is going to be top of funnel to keep some continued effort in getting in front of new audiences. But because you already have a large following, and because the primary goal is revenue and you need to build trust with your audiences before you can sell them because you have a service-based business, I really don't think gaining another 500,000 followers that are like vanity followers is going to be the easiest way to make more money. Like, that sounds difficult, actually. Like, what I think is going to be much easier is winning over the existing audience that is already interested in your content and has already raised their hand saying, I want to see more. So the other 80% of the content, most of the stuff that you're going to be doing is middle and bottom of funnel. Most of it is building trust with your content because this is a service-based and consulting offer that requires a lot of trust, and some content with a call to action to actually take the next step and let people know how they can get, a free lead magnet or your book, or asking potentially more direct bottom of funnel things like getting on a sales call, or even more direct, which is just asking for them to check out on your website, all of which eventually results in more revenue. Now, have we ever in a client engagement counted every single post to make sure we're following the math perfectly down to the percentage point? No, it's more admin work than it's worth. But it is worth considering when planning out your content. Like, if we're going to go into a filming session, we'll know we roughly need about 12 top of funnel posts for the entire month, maybe a dozen or so pushes to a lead magnet, and then everything else is going to be middle of funnel. Most of the content is going to be middle of funnel. Now, for product-based offers, you probably don't need to build as much trust. Like, if you're an e-com, you're not going to build a whole bunch of middle of funnel content and the split is going to be completely different. Like, maybe it looks like 80% top of funnel, just getting some kind of attention on social media, and then like 20% for middle and bottom to actually convert it. But it should be really easy to convert. If you're advertising a physical product, you might not need any authority at all to make the sale, just demonstrating the product. A really good example of this, one of our clients, Bunky Life, they sell bunkies, which are basically just like tiny homes. So you could educate people with middle of funnel content on the square footage of tiny homes on average, the heating ratio of tiny homes. But what's probably going to be a better use of your time is, rather than just talking about the product, which everyone can read a spec sheet on, you just have an amazing advantage in being able to show off your product. You can show how it's built. You can show how it looks. You can show how it's used, which is very difficult to do if you're in a service-based business like accounting, for example. You can't show how the numbers are calculated. They just are, and you know it. So product-based businesses are going to have a much easier time reaching their audiences when the audiences can see themselves using it. Another example is software tools. So I've worked with many large software brands in the past, including QuickBooks, Venmo, PayPal, and while I could talk about the benefits of their encrypted payment system, or how their credit card has 1% better cash back on purchases up to $6,000 in a calendar year. I used to do this. All of those are middle of funnel ideas, but they're generally for more sophisticated users, people that were already on the fence of buying. And all of that assumes that you do trust me and my math and my opinions on payment security and what a good deal is. But something that would be more simply understood and has gotten way more views is just a top of funnel video showing the product. And when I used to make content for Venmo, for example, it's just me typing in my friend's phone number and then suddenly being able to send them $20 for lunch because I forgot my wallet. For this type of top of funnel video, you don't need to trust me. You can just see that the product is working. And just showing how the product works for product-based businesses or SaaS in a video has far outperformed all the math and logic and trust that you could spend years trying to build with videos and logically talking through how the product could work. Now, the third example I wanted to show you for funnel ratios is what to do if you are starting from scratch with no social media presence whatsoever. A large part of our clients come to us in that situation. So if you don't have an audience yet, if you're just starting from scratch, you should start by giving as much as possible to your audience. No asking for checkouts, no bottom of funnel content. Don't be trying to monetize that audience. You should also be prioritizing top of funnel content to get in front of as many new and relevant people as possible. Now, depending on your industry, this might be a couple months of only posting top of funnel content. Maybe you post 20% middle of funnel in those first few months where you get, winning top of funnel videos and that you go into more detail on for middle of funnel. But the rest of your content, the 80% would be top of funnel. Another example I'll give from one of our clients who prefers to stay anonymous, but they run a really successful coaching business doing hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. Not many people on social media knew them as a professional in the industry. So for the first 2 months that we had, they were spent entirely on getting as many new relevant people to watch their videos as possible. We didn't include any middle of funnel posts until about 2 months in. And then after posting for 4 months, 1 to 2 videos per day, we had so many videos posted that were all top of funnel. At that point, he had built up a decent audience of people that were at least aware of him, and he already had a successful business and an offer that he knew worked. So when we did make an ask post, combining those two, audience that he had and the business that was already converting successful, we did a single short form looping video. It was very caption heavy. It had a ManyChat CTA. It got him tens of thousands of views. And because it was positioned towards a bottom of funnel event, which is converting into leads, he brought in literally thousands of leads with a single video and a very substantial amount of revenue. Now, it wouldn't have been possible to ask their audience for money until they had an audience that knew, liked, and trusted him. So a lot of those first videos were around getting that audience and then building trust. But once the audience was there, once they were warmed up a little, we could make tons of money from a single video just by typing some words on a screen and clicking post and not even being on camera that entire month because his schedule didn't allow for it because he was traveling a bunch. But at the end of the day, it is the quality of the content, not what percentage of each type of content that you post that is going to get you the result. So don't worry about getting the ratio just right. Just understand what it even means and focus on just making good content. If you have specific questions about your specific scenario, just ask our team. They'll be able to give you guidance on whether you should be top of funnel, middle of funnel, or bottom of funnel. One big mistake that we work through with a lot of our clients that will absolutely limit your reach on social media is called the famous person effect. And I wanted to explain it with an anecdote. The author Tim Ferriss asks all of his interviewees, including some of the most well-known people in the world, the exact same question on every single interview. What would you put on a billboard that everyone in the world would see? And man, if the entire world is looking, it's better to be profound. And so the answers he gets are often very profound, like you have purpose, or call your mom, talk less, listen more. It's all this ethereal stuff, which is probably actually useful for the entire world to see. But when you think about it, what is on actual billboards really like when you drive by on the interstate? It's always like best injury attorney in the city, phone number. Live show tonight, MGM Grand, 6 p.m., 8 p.m., 10 p.m. Real estate professionals, 35 lots available, next exit. And the difference between the message that you would put on a billboard for everyone in the world to see is very different from what most people put on a billboard that they know will only be seen by a narrow demographic, which is maybe only the people on the freeway that month. And the point that I'm trying to make is the narrower your audience is, the more specific and actionable you need to make your message. So when you look at the biggest content creators in the space, the ones with tens of millions of followers, the ones with millions of views on every single post, you need to recognize which one of those two billboards they have, the bigger one, right? And because they're expecting to reach millions of people with every single post, the message they make has to be tailored to that audience. And most of the times, just being real, their audience listens to them just because they are famous. It's like when you're walking down the street and everyone starts crowding around someone and there's like a big crowd forming and people have their phones out asking to get a picture or a signature, like whether you know who that famous person in the center of the crowd is, you're probably going to look over there and just see what's going on. It's called the famous person effect. And if you don't have that kind of reach yet yourself, your message is going to need to be different than the famous person's because your audience is smaller and it's narrower and it's more specific. But at the same time, you have the advantage with that smaller audience to be far more tactical. Just like best attorney in the city can just like throw up his office phone number and get a whole bunch of leads. Like that's not something that you can do when you're in front of the entire world. You have an advantage in that with your narrower audience, you can get way more specific. But there is also a way that we can learn from these really big guys. One of the ways that you can get inspiration from some of the biggest people in your space without worrying about like copying them directly or whether or not it's going to work because you don't have millions of followers is by looking at the type of content they were posting before they got famous. And so while we do want this level of success they have right now, posting what they're posting right now is not going to give you that success. But 15 years ago, if we look at some of the biggest people like Gary Vee, he was talking about tips for posting on YouTube for small businesses. It's before he had millions of followers. That was the type of narrow niche content he made. Grant Cardone was making sales training tutorials. Very niche for his small audience back then. 5 years ago, Alex Hormozi made very tactical business tutorials, largely talking about scaling gyms. And now all of these guys have massive audiences. Their biggest videos are all very profound ideas of them talking on stage and talking about the meaning of life or business or how to make money broadly. But if they started by making those types of videos that were very broad, they probably would have never gotten to the level of success they're at now. So unless you have millions of followers already, I recommend not making videos that are successful because of the famous person effect, being able to identify videos that potentially do fall into that category, and instead going after a few concepts or ideas that are successful for people that are just a couple levels of above you. Maybe people with 2 to 5 times your follower count are having great success with those types of videos, instead of referencing the most successful videos from the most successful people in the world and expecting those exact things to also work for you. One factor to consider when making targeted content for your very niche audience is understanding that audience and specifically how to talk to them through a psychological principle called the locus of control. And this is how you make a video work before you even make the video. Figure out what your audience thinks the problem is and make your messaging match it. So where they place the blame, where they place the control, speak to that power, and your content will be more powerful. And I'll explain in a second, but most marketers, they skip this step. But when you get it right, I've seen this drop ad costs by half, sometimes even to a third with our clients, with basically the exact same type of ad creatives. It's just addressing a slightly different problem or talking about it in a slightly different way. It's a very small shift, and that's why it's difficult for some people to understand, but it is so powerful, which is why I want to make a whole video addressing this. So people often find problems that you can solve for them with your business in one of 4 things. It's your job to figure out which kind of thing it is and base your entire marketing strategy around that. And if you've ever sold to a client, you've probably gotten some of these objections. Like a lot of this sounds like sales psychology, but in content, you have the same exact goal, which is you have to know where people are at, you have to meet them there, and you have to communicate more effectively and create content specifically for them if you want that sale. So it's very similar to sales. And the first place that people place blame and find problems are concepts. So they place their blame on an entire concept, like the economy or the government or society or like time itself. That's the problem. I'll start when the marketing improves. I'll start when the election's over. I'll start when things are fair in my business environment. They blame things that they can't touch and they can't change, and conveniently, things that they can't be held accountable for. That is the very first layer of the locus of control, and it is very far out from where they're at. They can never actually touch that thing. And the second layer, they blame things. So they blame things like money. They blame things like their old computer. They blame things like the state they live in. Like actual things that they can point to and actually explain, other than, the other one was just concepts like government. Like how do you point to government, right? So they see things like, I'll invest in marketing once I have more money. They blame the money, which is funny how that works because you need money to invest into marketing and you need marketing to make more money. But whatever. They blame things that are real. They blame things that are tangible, but things that still feel outside of their control. In the next layer, they take a little bit more accountability. So they blame actual people. They can not just point to things, but they can point to individuals. So they blame their parents, they blame their partners, they blame their employees for not being able to figure this out, or for not being able to get started, or whatever's preventing the sale, whatever's preventing them from agreeing with your marketing. So they'll say things like, I would succeed if my team weren't so incompetent. So we're getting a little closer to the truth here. At least it's someone responsible and not something that no one can influence or something that you can't even point to. And then at the 4th level, the deepest level, when you know your marketing truly hits, this is the final level, is when they blame themselves. When they say, my business isn't growing because I lack the skills, so I'm going to fix that. When they blame themselves, they reclaim all of the control and they reclaim all of the power in fixing their position. So your job is to meet them where they're at and eventually peel back each one of these layers to get to the core of the problem, which in most cases is always them. Not everyone starts at level 4. Most people are still stuck at level 2 or level 3, and that's fine. You can still sell to them. You just got to peel back the layers one at a time before you get to, this is my responsibility, this is my problem, I can take control and I can fix this. I can use your product or service because I know I have the power to be able to influence my position. And with content, we can get someone from like a 4 to a 2, because when someone says, oh, all this sounds great, I can see how it would work, but I need to check with my partner. That's progress. Like at least they're no longer blaming blaming the economy, something that you are never going to be able to influence or themselves really be able to influence, an objection that you're never going to be able to overcome, they are at least admitting now that they could influence the decision if they talk to the right person first. And in sales, just like in content, your goal is to build enough trust to guide people through each one of these 4 layers, peeling back the layers until they take full ownership so that you have the most amount of change in their state and they have the most amount of control over their situation. But you can't rush this. Like, you can't just go out and say in a video, hey, you're the problem, you're an idiot, fix it. Just like in therapy, earn the right to tell someone the truth. And at the end, just have them be accountable for the decisions and taking action by being responsible for themselves. So starting from the furthest locus of control, people blame situations or they blame concepts. We call that telling stories. And they say things like, oh, well, it wouldn't have worked out because of this thing here. So now I can feel good because I've got something to blame and it couldn't have been me, right? And as long as you blame something else, you're not responsible, you're not response-able, you are not in control. And so when the locus of control is intangible, when it's a concept, like it is for most people, they blame things outside of their control. And it's really hard to fix anything when people think that whatever is broken isn't something they can influence. So instead of blaming them and saying, you're an idiot, it's not the economy, it's you, and losing their trust, you could blame their fitness routine, the thing that they don't have any control over, for not having them do this special exercise that burns calories 10 times faster, like fasting cardio. Not that I believe in that, but like maybe that's your solution. Or you can share a sales technique for why they haven't been closing prospects in this tough economy. Like, this is the tough economy close. Oh, you didn't know about the tough economy close? You're right. It is the economy that's preventing all your clients from closing, but here's the tough economy close. Here's how to get over that. I don't even think that's a real thing either. But either way, you need to give them some sense of agency over this problem that they previously have never even been able to touch before. They've just been missing this hack or this trick that they should have tried, and that would solve their problem. And for this audience, really, you have to provide very practical takeaways in your content. Anything that's generalized or not specific, like you should just try harder, you should work more, simply is not going to be well received because you haven't earned their trust to be preachy. You haven't earned their trust to say the locus of control is actually you. You control your situation. They are still thinking it is something ambiguous, something intangible, and you have to mirror that or they're not going to believe you. Now, if this is your audience, your content needs to be extremely tactical. It needs to be made for them to get immediate value from something that they've been missing. Now, for warm audiences, like one layer down, we can get a little bit more open. So instead of assigning the blame to ambiguous things like time or the economy that they may not be in anyone's control, they will point the blame to specific things like it is their broken sales funnel and they think that's the only thing they need help fixing. Or it is some kind of piece of technical equipment, a camera, a light, whatever that is preventing them from having all of their wildest desires, and that is the only thing that is broken. So you need to just show them the secret strategy with that specific thing that they have a problem with that they haven't yet tried. Tell them about the communication strategy or the closing framework that'll help their sales team double their close rate. It is still very tactical, but as you dig deeper, the focus changes from just like tricks and tools to actual strategies, actual education. They are receptive to improving their entire website tech. It's not about the economy anymore. We can talk about fixing just their website or fixing just their sales process. And then as we continue to move down deeper, it is actual coaching for their team. So maybe they'll blame their sales rep, or maybe they'll blame their person in tech saying, oh, they're incompetent. We need to create content that actually supports those people. So maybe you create a video that is a tutorial for sales that business owner who is blaming their sales team would take and send to their sales reps to be able to improve. And either way, you're at least on the right track of giving them real coaching, which is probably what they really need. And then eventually at the deepest level, you have content that makes them look inward. This is when you have a really large warm audience. This is when you've built a lot of trust with your audience. You don't have to be tactical all the time. You don't have to have a concrete takeaway with every single post. You have loyal fans. You have people that are just going to listen to you because they like you and they trust you. You can make purely motivational content and it's going to be very successful. And this is where the biggest life coaches and the biggest business coaches and health coaches eventually end up once they have millions and millions of followers. They have enough trust with their audience that the message becomes work harder or try more or like just be patient. And that's like the whole video and people eat it up. But people see Tony Robbins give that motivational speech where he just says that and they try to copy it and they get no results and they wonder why. And it's not that Tony's message is wrong. Obviously, he has millions of followers and tons of people praise him for his work. It's just that what he says, word for word, won't work for anyone else because they don't have the context of trust and authority that Tony Robbins has built over decades with millions of people. And the entire goal of marketing is to get as many people here as possible, people that will trust you no matter what you say, so that you can essentially start selling without even trying. You just say words and suddenly they're like gold to people. But you have to get here one layer at a time. And it's another reason why you should really focus on building up your brand equity. Start with tactics that build trust. As your audience warms up, eventually shift the ratio to also making content that gives them agency over their own problems. Less tactics, more strategy. And then start helping actual people with development themselves. Develop their sales reps, develop their tech people, develop whoever it is that are decision makers in their lives that they point blame to. And then at the very bottom, the brand equity is the result of this process where you slowly start to win the trust of your audience, and then you get to tell them what to do, and they trust you for it. You can't just skip to motivational content and expect it to land right away. You have to start with where your audience is, highly tactical, high value content that proves you understand their worldview as they see it. You have to build their trust, the right to go deeper, from tactics into strategy, from tips into coaching, from like, here's what you do to here's who you need to become. And you need to master this framework of progression. You're never going to understand what content to make next. But if you know exactly where your audience is in trusting you, you'll also understand what they need to hear and when they're ready for more. When creating content, you also need to match your level of credibility to your audience's level of trust. I call this the credibility continuum. And so for cold audiences, oftentimes with top of funnel content targeting people that don't know you, they're cold audiences, you want to lead with observations, such as a statement like, this real estate strategy went viral. People with very little experience are buying millions in property. And this works because you are reporting on facts that anyone can verify, just like delivering the news. People rarely question the integrity of the person reading the news. There's nothing to argue with. There's nothing requiring you to trust them. And yet, just like the news anchor, you are a narrator. You are not a self-proclaimed expert. And for warmer audiences, further down, middle of funnel, you could think of that, you can actually share your experience. So instead of just talking about an observation, share your experience. A statement like that might sound like, this real estate strategy made me $2 million last year. So this is just what works for you. You're not promising that it works for anyone else. You're just saying, this is what worked for me. But by this point, they also probably know you enough. They're in your middle of funnel. They know you enough to believe your story. And personal results, like here's what happened to me, are harder to dismiss than abstract claims. This is because you are building proof through transparency by sharing what worked for you. And for loyal audiences, which is kind of bottom of funnel, people that already know who you are and they trust you, you can actually speak as the expert. You can have a statement like, this is the best strategy for making money in real estate, period. They already trust you. They want your authoritative perspective. They're not questioning your credentials at this point. They're just asking for your perspective. So you can give them something that is potentially opinionated. And here's what most creators get wrong. They try to establish this expertise. They try to come off as the expert in their content before earning the right to do so from their audience. Because when you're unknown, when you're trying to reach top of funnel audiences and you lead with, here's the best way to do this specific thing, you actually sound like every other self-proclaimed guru on the internet. There's thousands of them. And audiences just know that. They immediately tune those things out and you never even get a chance to finish your video. But if you flip the script, instead of saying top ways to make money online, you say Kanye West did this thing to make $200 million from a single piece of online content. Here's what happened. You are taking an expert position and instead presenting it as an observation. You are telling the news, no longer your opinionated expert perspective. You are making an observation that anyone can independently verify. And even if you've made millions of dollars yourself, even if you are the best in your industry, cold audiences don't know that yet. So you can't start with your expertise. You can't lead with authority and expect everyone to just believe you, unfortunately, because there are so many other people doing the same exact thing on the internet. You need to start what is undeniable, the observation that you are making, the observation that anyone else can verify. And then you use that as a bridge to then share your experience, and then eventually, once you win their trust, their expertise. And there's a quick test I like to call the Jeff Bezos test. If you are not the most credible person on the topic, don't lead as if you are. So Jeff Bezos can say top ways to make money online, but that is the only person that to a completely cold audience can say top ways to make money online because his credibility is pre-established. He has made the most money online over anyone else in the history of mankind. And if you have not, you can't lead with that same statement and expect to get the same kind of results as Jeff Bezos. And if you're thinking about it in hierarchy, observations open doors, experience builds trust with that audience, and expertise closes deals. So you got to use them in that order: top, middle, and then eventually bottom of funnel, and you'll never sound like another guru that is just screaming into the void. The content you publish is going to be a double-edged sword. No matter what, every single piece of content that you post is either going to bring you closer to a sale or push prospects further away from the sale. And the amount of money you make on social media is directly proportionate to how far in either direction you have pushed people with your content. I call this brand equity. High quality content builds up brand equity, increases your brand's value, and low quality content decreases your brand's equity. And the question you should always consider is how much equity you have, whether it's positive or negative, that you've built with your audience. And one of the things that impacts this brand equity the most is the give to ask ratio in your content. How often do you give value in your content? And how often do you ask your audience to do something like become a lead in your funnel or give up their personal information to book a sales call with you? And in the short term, if you have a lot of asks, you're going to make more money because you're asking people to go do something that generates you revenue. But you're also going to decrease your equity with every single ask. And the more you give, so the more value you provide without asking for anything, the less money you're going to make in the short term, but it sets you up to build massive personal brands in the long term. And that's what you see with brands like Gary Vaynerchuk, who didn't sell anything for years to his audience and still really doesn't beyond the large B2B marketing services that he does. Now he makes hundreds of millions of dollars per year from that exact type of demographic watching his content. And these give and ask posts aren't binary. You can have an ask that has a very soft call to action that doesn't deplete your brand equity almost at all, like the CTA I recommend everyone to have in their bio, which is a ManyChat automation to get free access to something that is valuable to you. That doesn't require a lot of taking from your audience. And while it is an ask in that you ask for their information, they become a lead for you. It's also not asking for very much, and they get a lot from it, ideally the value that you provide with your lead magnet. Alternatively, you could have a really hard call to action where you ask them to sign up for an hour-long sales call so that they can get pitched to buy your 5-figure program. That's a lot harder of an ask and usually depletes your brand equity a lot if you always post that hard call to action. Now, if you ask your entire audience to do that every single day, you probably aren't going to have an audience by the end of the week, right? And ideally, you should always instead be building up more and more brand equity. You should not be a net neutral. You should always be building in the positive and doing the bare minimum of asking and the maximum amount of giving, because the effects are going to be compounding from giving more. The more brand equity that you build, the easier it is to continue building brand equity to the point where you have a massive following that results in millions of dollars of revenue generated without even having to have any direct asks whatsoever. And knowing some of these guys on a first name basis, that is exactly what the most successful entrepreneurs on social media have done. And when they do eventually launch a product, when they have their first ask ever, when they go to the marketplace and for the first time ask their audience to buy something, they make so much money that I'm actually not allowed to tell you how much on camera, but trust me, it is life-changing work for just the couple of years that they spent building trust with their audience. So if I can give you any advice on how quickly should you try to get an ROI from social media, I would always say delay it as long as possible because the rewards are always going to be greater. So we can look at your social media strategy as a funnel in 3 stages: the top of funnel, the middle of the funnel, and the bottom of the funnel. And you need to have content for each type of person and the different levels of understanding that they're coming in with. Let's use a super niche example of someone that has a B2B business helping plumbing business owners make more money in their plumbing business. Super niche client of ours that started from scratch and now is the biggest plumber on social media. He's made 6 figures a month from organic content alone. He's doing really well. Starting with the very bottom of the funnel, this is for conversions. This is really where you can turn your followers into clients by helping them as much as you can. They're problem aware, they trust you, they're ready to buy, and this type of bottom of funnel ask post asks your audience to do something. For example, we would offer potential customers a custom solution for one-on-one coaching. These posts reflect your business goals and the problem you're trying to solve. So if you need revenue, this content generates that. If you need leads, this content generates that. If you want to attract attention to a new book that you're doing, this content generates that. And if you think of this as an ad, and whether you're doing it with organic content that is free to post or an actual ad that you put paid traffic behind, the goal here is the same with bottom of funnel content, is to actually make money. Now moving up the funnel, we have middle of funnel, where you're showing off your expertise and you're turning viewers that loosely know about you into a warm audience by providing them value. So before you make a sale, you actually need those people to trust you. This middle of funnel content is how you do that. So in our plumbing coach example, we would make content about plumbing and business strategies and tactics and provide free value to their audience. It also serves as a testing ground to find out where your bottom of funnel needs to be. So the top middle performing content will tell you what the best bottom performing content will probably be before you go wasting your brand equity or actual dollars in ads testing this bottom of funnel angle that's probably never even going to work. You can look at your middle of funnel stuff, understand what's doing well, and then model that for bottom of funnel and be basically guaranteed a result. For example, if we found and tested that plumbers don't respond well to make money online claims in the middle of funnel because they're highly skeptical of online coaching programs, and instead we found better that they respond to make it home in time for dinner with your family and stop taking phone calls at all hours of the night as marketing messaging, we could save thousands of dollars in failed ad spend on the coaching angle of the product we're trying to sell and skip right to the good stuff that we know our audience already responds to. And then with top of funnel, the biggest part of the funnel, this is where you get views with the right audience. Really just helps you get in front of more of the right people and helps distribution of your middle and bottom of funnel content eventually when you do make it. And as an example of how this top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel works, I'm sure you've experienced this before on social media where you see like one video from a person and you watch it because it's a good video. You like that video. And then for like the rest of the next month straight, you start seeing all of their content everywhere. You start seeing their middle of funnel, you start seeing their bottom of funnel. They're just everywhere on your social media after just watching one video. And this is what most people get wrong about social media. They track top of funnel views as the only type of progress that matters. But for a business, building brand, building conversions, which are middle and bottom of funnel content, are even more important. They're just not as easily tracked with view count. But if you can get those top of funnel views first, you can drive those audiences to middle and bottom of funnel content, which will actually end up building you the trust and making you the money for your business. For example, there's a lot of people on social media that have millions of people watching them every single month in top of funnel, but because they don't have any middle or bottom of funnel built out, they have zero real influence. Like no one actually listens to them for their advice. They watch their videos, but they can't change their audience's opinions or drive revenue. They're like a dancing monkey at a zoo. They're not a speaker on stage with trust. Like both get views. The monkey maybe even gets more views, but only one of those two has influence. And just to illustrate the differences, one of our former members on the team, Lisa, she built up the team at Dave Ramsey, the social media team over there. She was presenting on stage about this exact topic, top versus middle versus bottom of funnel. And she played two videos and she asked the crowd to guess which one of these two videos performed better. And she had the audience vote. Some audience voted on one of the videos, some of the audience voted on the other. And then she showed the view count for both videos. And the crowd just erupted like, oh my gosh, this video did so much better. I was right. Of course, the other video would have never gone viral. And then Lisa said, well, the views were just one part of the equation in the video doing better. And no one knew, or no one even asked, what the actual goal of either of the posts were. So both of those videos were made with a bottom of funnel goal to drive sales. And the video with the big view count that everyone thought did better actually only did a fraction of the sales. While it was good at getting new audiences, it wasn't good at converting audiences and actually driving revenue. And if you can understand where in the funnel each piece of your content belongs, it'll give you all the control that you need over the levers that you could be pulling on social media and what analytics to pay attention to, whether it's followers or comments or total views, whether it's getting more views with the audience or getting new audiences that haven't seen you before to actually follow and engage, or converting the audience that you do have and have been nurturing into actual paying customers for your business. This is how you go from just throwing spaghetti at a wall and hoping it sticks to actually strategically making content and posting to get results for your business. And a common mistake that our account managers work through with clients all the time is people will either be stuck at one extreme or the other. So they might rock at top of funnel. They know how to get views. They know how to say, controversial stuff to get tons of people to engage, but they never actually convert people into their business. Or the opposite is true, where they're such experts at what they do that they can never step back and teach from the perspective of a beginner for top of funnel and reach more people. They only know how to ask for money in their content. Another example of this for a personal trainer, I personally like fitness and I'm interested in what other people are doing. And if I come across a good top of funnel post from a personal trainer, I'll follow that person just because I hope to see more content from them. Even though I don't actively want a personal trainer myself, I know about fitness. I don't want the coaching. I prefer to work out by myself. But then I might be served up a couple more videos that explain in detail some things about exercise or diet that are really niche for people that are a bit more experienced, and I'll be intrigued by it, right? The top of funnel content was very broad and I don't want personal training, but the bottom of funnel stuff he's saying, the middle of funnel stuff is really building up my trust in this person. And it's this middle of funnel content that makes me trust the personal trainer even more because they're providing me value. And then I might get hit with a bottom of funnel post promoting their new app or their new program. And even though I wasn't actively shopping for fitness advice because I don't ever want it, I end up buying with that person because I trust them and they've earned my business. And I just want to hear more from their perspective. I never would have been shopping for a program in the first place. I never would have responded to direct ads for that. But because it's coming from someone I know and someone I like and someone I trust, they have forced me to buy because I'm interested. But without ever seeing that top of funnel post, without ever seeing that piece of content that, they might have thought is irrelevant to someone like me, they never would have sold me because I wasn't a customer of their product, because I wasn't a follower of their brand. And this is something that no direct response marketing can touch. This is a massive new set of audiences of people that don't even think of themselves as customers for your brand. But with social media, you can absolutely convert them into sales. And so with every script you write, with every video you post, you really need to determine who you're making it for and what your goal is, top, middle, and bottom of funnel, so that you can have full control over that process. Whether it's getting a new audience or nurturing an existing one or converting your followers that you do have. And focus on doing just that for every single video. So there are tons of different types of videos that you can make, and there are multiple ways to make those different types of videos. Your job isn't to master every single way to make any type of video on social media. It's to find a format that matches your current skill level and gets you the best results the fastest. Here's how to decide where to actually start. And I'll kind of break it up by different types of formats. So the first format is fully scripted talking head videos. This is where I recommend most people to start. It's a video like this that is fully scripted, where your thoughts are concisely presented on video, and it can be a short form video or a long form video. This is best for 95% of people when they first start making content. This is where most people should begin because it gives you the highest chance for success. Because when you script out every single word before filming, you control all of the variables. You control your hook, you control your story, the payoff that you have at the end. You don't have to ramble. You're not going to forget your point halfway through the video. You don't waste a whole bunch of time doing bad takes that don't sound good. It's extremely efficient and very effective for when you are in front of the camera. That being said, it does take more time in prep before filming to make sure that you have all that information organized. And with hundreds of clients, we've seen scripted content far outperform unscripted rambling content, but only if you can deliver that content in a way that sounds natural and authentic to you. And the catch kind of here with this scripted content is that it only works if you don't sound like you're reading. If you can actually make it sound natural, that's the only way it ever works. You can think of it kind of like a speech. Like the more preparation you have before giving that speech, the better you become. But reading off word for word off a teleprompter kills the message. Like, you need to internalize the script. It needs to feel very natural to you. You need to be the one that writes it, and then you need to be the one that nails the performance. Otherwise, you're going to sound like some nervous kid, like at his very first school play. It's going to be awkward. It's going to feel bad. And the biggest mistake that most people make in scripting content is scripting it in your writing voice and not scripting it in your reading voice. So they'll write the script in the way that they would write an email or write a LinkedIn post or like this super formal letter. It's very structured, it's very overly polished, they use a lot of big words, and it sounds like Shakespeare. It doesn't sound like how they would actually talk. And so when they try to go and deliver it, it doesn't sound like them at all. It's like, you stumble over your own words that you just wrote. And I'll give an example here. So like, this is all scripted, but I'll read something that is in a writing voice. One must consider the implications of market timing when evaluating investment opportunities. No one talks like that. That is crazy. That sounds too smart. Like, only Batman's butler actually talks like that. I forgot what his name is, but you know who I'm talking about. Alfred, all right. Now, in your spoken voice, here's the same exact thing said differently. Here's the thing about timing the market. Most people get it completely wrong. So how you take one written sentence and transform it into a spoken sentence is you actually speak the sentence out loud as you write it. You will naturally choose better words and more simple language when writing it out if you read out every single sentence after writing it. What you don't want to do is write everything out, get to start filming, and then read it for the very first time, because you are going to be shocked at how bad it sounds. And if it doesn't sound like something that you would say to a friend when saying it out loud, you should probably rewrite it and have it be formatted for more of a natural voice. And if you don't read your scripts out loud until you start recording, like I will know, my team will know, everyone watching on social media will know, this sounds really awkward. It doesn't sound like you. It sounds like your content was written by AI, is what people will tell you in your comment section. And this is one habit that will make the biggest difference between your content quality and how it actually sounds. You could have the perfect script, but if you can't deliver it naturally because it's not in your reading voice, it's not going to matter. We'll talk through a few more examples later, but the second format is bullet points and a little bit of light improv. So this is really better for natural speakers who ramble less when they have just a little bit of structure, but prefer flexibility in their speaking. So if you are constantly tripping over your words or losing your train of thought when filming from a script, because you can't focus delivering it word for word. You can try this instead. Write out 3 to 5 bullet points, a beginning, a middle, and a conclusion, for example, and just speak around them. Maybe include a single anecdote that you were hoping to mention in one of those points. And people will know immediately when trying this out if this feels easier or harder than scripting. Like, just try it twice and you'll know right away. If you can stay concise, and if you can stay on message with just the bullet points, this might be your format. If you ramble too much, or if you notice your videos are going on for 2 to 3 minutes when you're intending for just a single minute, go back to scripting. Really, the test I recommend everyone to try is to film 3 videos. And if you're doing like 5 takes per video on each one of those 3 videos, and you spend like half an hour recording those 3 videos, you probably need to go back to full scripts. And for most people, bullet points only work if they're naturally concise. But if you are that way, and if you deliver comfortably with just a couple of bullet points, it can save you a lot of time in the scripting process and feel less forced when you're actually having to deliver the content. Another format you could use are response videos. So these are really good for people who are better at reacting to content than creating content from scratch. Maybe they're not super creative on what to talk about, but they can respond professionally to something that someone else has made. Or someone who wants to build in a little bit more proof of concept in their initial first few videos. And response videos are exactly what they sound like. You're just responding to someone else. So you could be responding to a comment that you got from your audience, a question that you got in your direct messages. Another creator's video is also very common. You can take the first few seconds of someone else's video, use their hook, and then the rest of the entire video will be your video. Or you can just create a response video to trending news, a topic that's in your industry and really popular right now. And this works because it solves the hardest part of content creation, which is staring at a blank canvas, not knowing what I should talk about. Will anyone care? These response videos give you a pre-validated topic, so someone has already asked the question or made the video, so you know that there's some interest in it. A pre-built-in hook, so the hook of the video, what gets people's interest, is that someone else was interested or said something about the topic. And if you want a verbal hook on top of that, you can start with, someone asked me this question, or I saw this video claiming that, ... or I wanted to address the news, blank, blank, blank. Immediately you create context for your entire video and you have a topic to talk about. It also creates some natural structure, like you're answering something specific, which keeps you very focused and concise in giving that answer. And lastly, it also gives a little bit of social proof. So responding to real questions or popular content on the internet shows that you're really engaged with your industry and that you know what you're talking about. It also allows you to add your opinion in there, and you're just naturally stepping into a conversation that already exists. It allows you to take a little bit more of an expert frame as opposed to preaching at the world about something that no one cares about. You are instead giving your opinion on discourse that is already happening. These kind of videos are also ideal for monetization and building your middle and bottom of funnel. So we cover this in depth later when we get to bottom of funnel content, but just as a really quick preview, response videos naturally lead to call to actions. It's very easy to get someone to do something after they watch a response video because you're already solving a problem for them, especially if it's a question that you're answering. And within response videos, there's kind of like 3 different types. So the first is reacting to other content. So if you see a video in your niche or a niche adjacent to yours, you can respond with your own take, either agreeing with it or disagreeing with someone else's opinion or just adding nuance to a subject that really wasn't very well explained. So some example hooks here. I just saw a video saying that you should do something that's actually bad advice. Here's why that's wrong. Or this creator posted the best explanation of subject that you're interested in that I've ever seen. Let me just add one thing that they missed. Or everyone's talking about this new news thing, but they're missing the most important part, which is this. Or just have the first few seconds of someone else's video play as the hook of the video because you know the hook was good enough for them to get views. If you're responding to a video that has thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of views, use their hook, use the proven concept, and then start your argument just a few seconds into the video. Use a few seconds of their video, and then the rest of the video is original thoughts that you're adding. And this works because you're riding the wave of something that's already getting attention. Any kind of disagreement that you might have with the original piece of content creates some kind of curiosity, like, oh, I saw that video, or that was a popular video. Why was what they were saying wrong? And why was what you're saying more informed or correct or different? And you can also then position yourself as an authority who can evaluate other people's ideas critically. And you're not just saying, here's a viral video, I agree with it. Here's a viral video, I disagree with it. Ideally, you'd be adding context. You'd add 30, 45 seconds of a missing perspective or some kind of application to what that video is saying, or like, your experience based on what that video is about. And if you're talking about response videos to other popular videos, you could respond to just about anything. Another type of content would be audience questions. So this is the best one. And once you start getting some content that starts to snowball, you'll get some people commenting on your videos or DMing you or emailing you questions. And you could just film response videos to those questions and then have even more people ask you questions. It's like infinite content because they see proof of concept, someone asking a question and you giving an answer. It prompts other people in your audience to jump in and ask even more questions. And once you get here, a couple of example hooks that you could use is someone just asked me the best way to ... Or I get this DM like 3 times a week, so let me clear this up for you ... Or this question keeps coming up in my calls, so here's the truth ... And it works because your audience literally tells you what they want to know. There's zero guesswork. They are asking you the question so you can respond to it. And when you answer publicly, everyone else with the same questions get value too. Another format is mock interviews. So potentially with your account manager, you can get on a call and they'll ask you questions in your industry. This is really good for clients who speak better when they're prompted than when they are presenting at something. So for example, if you're a doctor and you answer your patient questions all day long, you're probably very comfortable with that style, that format of presenting your expertise. We can model that in a mock interview or a mock podcast just as well. And this is an option that we use with a lot of clients that spend a lot of time working directly with their own clients answering questions. Think lawyers, accountants, doctors. They've spent years answering client questions, and so they're very good at that specific style of delivery. And if that's the case, we're just going to bring talking points, audience FAQs, industry-specific questions that we will interview on camera and that you're just going to be able to naturally answer because you do that all day anyways. And then we do the heavy lifting on the back end, like cutting up those questions into clips, rearranging some segments as needed, and creating your answer as an entire piece of content in post-production. But I will be honest, there are some downsides to this as well. So it does require significant back-end post-production to make the final product successful. Like even if you are a great speaker, turning raw interview footage into viral short form content is an art. We have a massive team of editors and a lot of experience picking the best responses, but it's still really difficult. And it's almost less about how you respond and more so how we can take your response and optimize it for social media. It's not right for everyone, but if you do think it's a good fit for you, ask your account manager and we'll set it up. Another format is similar, but instead of mock podcast clips, it's taking clips from an actual podcast. And for most people, this probably isn't a good idea. So you might see a lot of successful creators, people with millions of followers, just getting on a podcast, and then they take that podcast and they cut up clips into short form. It looks easy, but it's not. And it's actually very different from the mock podcast style, where the entire interview is designed to get shorts out of it. Unless you have literal decades of experience in sales or public speaking or some kind of media, unscripted long-form content probably will not translate into successful short-form clips. You need years of practice to naturally create a hook mid-conversation. You need to know when to add emphasis or pause in that delivery to have it be very concise. And delivering complete thoughts with all of the necessary context you need to have a 30 to 60 second short form chunk of video is extremely difficult. You also have to be very cautious at not rambling or losing the thread. Like most podcasts aren't very well structured for converting into shorts. And I'll give an actual case study here because it's not at all about the expertise or the type of person doing this. It's simply the style of podcast, which is often not congruent. So our case study for this was Dave Ramsey. He's a billionaire, and he was a billionaire long before he was social media famous because he had a radio show. He had decades on radio, on stage, writing books. He was one of the best educators on the planet. But even he struggled to make podcast clips work at first. So one of our executives, Lisa, she worked directly to build Dave's social media team. And at the very start, working with Dave, the issue obviously wasn't his speaking ability. He had decades of that. He just wasn't optimizing for the final clip of what he was saying to be cut up and posted on short form content. So he would start these stories with no concise ending and then get around to it 10 minutes later. But that doesn't translate well to a 1-minute video. Or he would bury the hook like 3 minutes into an answer, but you want the hook at the start of the video. That's the point. Or he didn't pause naturally at different parts of the video that we would need to edit around. So the content wouldn't naturally convert into short form videos very well. But after working with him for several months and reviewing the short form content that came from his long form consulting calls, Lisa was able to show him the results, and he got better at adapting his speaking style. He literally changed how he spoke after decades of speaking experience to optimize for short form content. It was absolutely a skill, and he worked on it. But once he understood how to speak for short form, again, not just speak well in general, he was already one of the best communicators on the planet, everything changed once he spoke for short form. He learned when to add emphasis, when to stop talking, when to add a little bit of color for storytelling. But that level of awareness only comes from being a top 1% communicator in the entire world and understanding the medium, short form video, with months of experience. So the bottom line is, just because you're good at podcasts or just because you're good at speaking on stage or teaching, it doesn't mean your long form content is going to translate well into short form clips. And if you've tried cutting up podcasts before, it probably didn't work. And this is exactly why. It's actually really hard, and I don't recommend starting there. A much easier entry point is those mock podcasts where the answer is going to be very short and the environment is extremely controlled. You're not trying to do live Q&A for multiple hours on end. Now, if you've already had some success on social media, one of the easiest tactics that I like to use when thinking about what new content to post, what we often actually recommend you post first is old content. For people that have had successful videos before, this is going to be the lowest hanging fruit because you already have successful videos. By just posting them again, you can get a really quick boost in views, a little bit of engagement, and hopefully some revenue. And you also get information on what kind of content your audience wants to see the most now. So if you've been making content for years already, a video that got you 100,000 views last year may not be successful today. But it would be good to know that before you start planning an entire month's worth of content around whatever strategy. Because if that video is successful today, like it was last year, you should probably make more content like it today. And just for future-proofing your content strategy, even if you are starting from scratch, everyone on social media needs to have a plan to be able to repost successful content once they have it. And this is usually what we do day one with some of our big guys that come in through our one-on-one program. We set up a plan to strategically repost their most successful content and then monitor the results to be able to inform what future content we actually start making. And we've seen people get millions of views, tens of thousands of new subscribers or followers with no real effort, like on day one, because they're just reposting their old proven successful videos a second or a third time over. And what this test controls for is the actual video. What you said, how you said it, all the details on the video. The one thing it doesn't control for, which is what we actually want to test, is the timing of when you actually posted it. So the more times we can repost the same exact video, the better we can isolate the timing variable and control for it. And this is actually really important as you grow on social media, because there are many instances where you could post a good video, but it can perform poorly and it'll give you a false negative. Like a video would only get 100,000 views, even though it is technically good enough to deserve 1 million. And it seems like your audience doesn't want that type of content because it got low views, when in reality, it could have been the best video you've ever made. And unless you repost it, you just won't know. Part of this variability is because not everyone is on social media every single day. Like maybe your audience that would have responded really well to the video isn't on social media as much this particular weekend. And so they missed your most valuable video ever. Like if you repost it, they have a second chance to be able to see it. Plus, not every single person sees every single post you make. Like even if they are chronically online, you post multiple times a week, not every single one of those posts is going to be absolutely recommended to them. It's not guaranteed. The algorithm might also miss it, like one of those times. For example, you could repost a video 3 times and it can get 3,000 views the first time, 100,000 views the second time, and 100,000 views the third time. We've had this happen before for clients. And obviously, the algorithm missed it on the first post where it only got 3,000 views, and the other posts it got 100,000. But if you only post a video once and you don't have the hindsight of the second 2 posts each getting 100,000 views, you'd have no clue if a video was actually bad or if it was just overlooked by the algorithm that day. If you don't repost, there's no way to find out. It's also possible that maybe someone who needed to see the video wasn't following you a year ago when you first made that post. The new people who have only been following you for the last few months, they have no clue you've been posting good content for years, because to them, you're only as good as the last couple of months of content because that's all they've seen. So having your reposts scheduled on a cycle lets those new audiences see your best stuff too. Another reason to repost is some people just might need to hear that message a second time. Like most people need to be reminded more than they need to be taught something. So serve that. And then if you're talking about technical things like very specific procedures or specific case law, middle of funnel or bottom of funnel content, your audience's viewing interests might have changed over the last year. For example, if you're a criminal defense attorney, your ideal audience may not have needed detailed information about what they should and shouldn't say to the police 3 months ago. But now, because they're being accused, it would be really useful if you reposted that video for them. And if you have hundreds of pieces of content that all sound or look kind of similar, it's also possible that they mistook one video for another. So if you have a lot of videos talking about a specific niche, this is actually inevitable. You'll open a video talking about sales 3 times, and the audience mistakes all 3 of those times for the same exact thing they've heard before. And so they just quickly skip over the video. Like, oh, I've heard this guy talk about sales. Let me go on to the next video. And so if you just post it again a couple months later, once the audience has forgotten that they just watched that other sales video from you yesterday, they'll be able to get value from it today. The most important reason to repost your content is if you actually made a good piece of content. If you made a good video, if it's not just, video of the day, if it's not like video 100 of this month, it's not just like he just sat down and filmed something just to post something today. If it is a properly good video, if it is the type of video that you want to show your friends, if it is a video that people are commenting on, like this is amazing, like that's the type of content we should be making anyways. Like when you make a video like that and the same person watches it a second time, it's still a good video the second time they watch it. And if you don't already have tens of thousands of followers, it's very likely that you will need to repost those videos a few times before they get the traction they deserve. You're not going to be able to post one video once and then have it reach everyone in the world that it possibly could. There's going to be a period of time where you have to go back through your entire catalog and repost that video. And while it's possible for your very first video ever on social media to get millions of views, it's much more common that there's going to be a gradual ramp in views as you get started. So the videos you create in month 1 or month 2 should be reposted in month 3, 4, 5, 6, so that they can get the reach that they actually deserve once you've built up your audience. And then once you have a large enough library of content, you may very well go a month without making or even posting truly new content and just have reposts keeping the content engine going. And from personal experience, when I was just a guy talking about investing and money on social media, I went 18 whole months on social media without ever being on camera. I got between 10 and 100 million views per month during that 18-month period. And of course, hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue for my business. And because I owned such a large library of content, I was able to act almost as a TV network by myself, essentially just showing reruns of myself to the same audience. And they loved it. Now, there are some downsides to this, like exceptions and rules to reposting. It definitely can backfire, but those are very much on a case-by-case basis. I'm not going to go through all of them here, but if you are seriously considering doing multiple months worth of content reposting, talk to my team. They can walk you through all the specific strategies that you need to be able to avoid any kind of platform restrictions or special scenarios that could backfire. Now, the next best strategy that we recommend is to recycle content that is already successful. This is a little different than just copy and pasting the same exact piece of content when you repost. When you're recycling the original material, you want to make something completely new out of it. But using what's already been proven to work for either you or your competitors will give you that massive advantage, so you're not starting from scratch on your content. One of the best and easiest ways to get inspiration for your successful content is to just study what the best creators in your space are already doing and what their audiences like to watch, because their audiences are ideally your audiences too. So take the most successful video concepts that other people are doing in your niche, recycle them to fit your brand, and then fit your story and your perspective. Now, whatever you do, I feel like I have to say this, plagiarizing is going to ruin your brand. Make it original to you. If you need me to explicitly tell you don't plagiarize, this is me saying don't plagiarize. But just like when you make a website, you don't invent the whole website from scratch. You use reference material. You look at a template or some other websites and you get inspired, right? It's still going to be original to you. It's still your website. But if you don't reference something at the start that's already built, that's already successful, if you are starting from scratch every single time, it's going to take you ages to figure this out. No one builds websites like that, just like no one should do content like that. So this is going to be one of the biggest shortcuts. Rather than just leaning into creativity and reinventing the wheel every single time you need to make a video, we're just going to lean into what's already working by modeling success from other people on social media. And there's a saying I like for this: most people repeat the same mistakes over and over. Smart people make a mistake once and adjust, but the smartest people in the world, they study what already works for smart people and for everyone else, and they just avoid those mistakes entirely. So be one of those smartest people. Pick topics and structures that already work for other people on social media so that they have the highest likelihood of working for you. And I've gotten arguments to this strategy before. Daniel, how do I convince and capture the attention of people with lizard brains scrolling on social media and convince them to give me their money if I'm doing the same thing as everyone else? That's boring. And I will just straight up tell you, your perception of boring is not the same as your audience's. I promise you, you will get bored of your own content before your whole target audience even sees it. You may even make 5 videos about the same exact topic and get a different audience every single time, and it will seem super boring to you. Marketing is not very interesting. When you do it right, it is boring. But to the person who only sees post number 5 and not the first 4 talking about the same thing, it is game changing, and you have to keep posting for them. Not every single video is going to be super exciting and fun and creative and new and whatever, but at the end of the day, you are making content for your audience and your business, not for yourself. If you want to do a separate thing for yourself that's new and exciting every single time, that's very fun, that's on you. But we are here running a business, and businesses don't stop marketing just because they are bored of a campaign, especially not if it makes money. So act like a business owner, act like a marketer, pay close attention to what the leaders in your niche and other niches on social media are doing, and more importantly, not doing, because this is market research. So act like a business owner, act like a marketer, pay very close attention to what the leaders in your niche are doing and other niches on social media are doing, and more importantly, what they're not doing, because the market research that you can do on your competitors for your audience is extremely important. And another little hack here is you can even go into the comment section of videos from your competitors and see what their community thinks. I love doing this because if the biggest videos that my competitor has stir up a lot of controversy, I look at those comments and then I make videos addressing those comments. And if you're new to social media, you can get a year's worth of content ideas just by reading through a competitor's comment section in all of their top videos, taking notes on the common questions or points, and just arguing those in your own content. You can just make your own videos with the same exact type of audience will then be cheering you on in your comment section because they were fighting that famous content creator in theirs. This way we can take inspiration from those leaders in the space, learn from their mistakes, and make even better content. Because most oftentimes, if you can find even a single competitor, their viral videos have hundreds, if not thousands of comments worth of feedback from people who watched that video and thought something else. I'll say it one more time for people in the back. If you want to make money, don't be creative, be smart. And I've got hundreds of examples of this working for myself and for clients, but I'll give you just one to illustrate my point. This was my first viral video ever. It was about the American Express Black Card. It was my first video to get over 100,000 views. It was my first video to get over 1 million views, and it ended up getting 4 million views total. And the next month, I published 10 more videos in a very similar style about the American Express Platinum and Gold cards, and then a whole bunch of other very similar luxury cards. So this one successful style of video and topic recycled dozens of times into other videos that I made, got me 400,000 followers in just 30 days. And then 3 months later, I reposted all those same videos and got 100,000 more new followers. And if you're looking to apply this for yourself, let's take it through another example with fitness content. Let's say your best performing video to date is about the best exercise to build glutes. This could be reframed into 5 completely different videos for 5 completely different audiences while still talking about building glutes. For example, you could use the 5 best exercises to build glutes for muscle size. So that's a video focused around fitness for women. Or the 5 best exercises to build glutes for endurance, video for long distance runners. Or for stability, potentially you're talking to recovering hip replacement patients. Or for mobility, so yoga students. Or for strength, you're talking to powerlifters. So those are a bunch of different videos all on the top 5 best exercises for glutes. But now you can do 5 of the worst exercises for glutes that if you're training for endurance or muscle size or whatever, that actually won't work. And then you can do that same exact proven concept for every other type of muscle group. One successful video, 5 best exercises for glutes, can create you an entire year's worth of content if you can recycle it correctly. And the cool thing is it doesn't even have to be your video. Like if you do market research on your competitors, you can find dozens of other proven viral videos that you can recreate in your style that are proven to work because they have millions of views demonstrating they do. Next, I wanted to talk about the hook of the video, which is the very first 5 seconds of your video that determine everything. If you can't get people to stop scrolling past other videos and start watching your video, nothing else in the video is going to matter. No world-changing insight, no perfect call to action at the end to convert viewers, no production quality is going to save a video that people never started watching in the first place. The hook is responsible for 100% of your video success. And the longer people watch, the more likely they are to like and then comment and then follow and then train the algorithm to show your content to more people just like them. So the hook is the most important part of any video. But here's here's what most creators get wrong. They think a hook is something that you say to convince people to watch, and it's absolutely not. In most cases, the best hook for a video is just getting directly into the most interesting part of your content. It is a shortcut for the viewer to get to the best part of your video right away. And generic hook templates as a whole don't work. You've probably seen those lists online if you've ever researched social media marketing. It's like 200 ways to start your video. Use this template, copy and paste this hook. Say this thing in the first 3 seconds of your video and be guaranteed people watch. We don't teach that here for 2 reasons. One, generic hooks aren't specific enough to work well. The more specific your hook is to your exact audience, the stronger their response is. And you could think about it like this. If you're in a busy restaurant and a server drops a plate, everyone looks around. Everyone's looking for that server. Where's that plate? Is the guy okay? What happened? Right? It's general curiosity, but no one does anything. Everyone sits in their seat and like 2 seconds later, they go back to eating their food. Now, in that same restaurant, when a child yells, "Mom," only the moms stand up and look. It's not everyone looking around anymore. It's just moms. And sometimes they even stand up to see where that sound came from. Who's that baby? But if in that same restaurant, someone shouts your name, you look and you probably stand up and you scan the room and you respond with like, "Yeah, who's that?" Right? The more specific you get calling out an audience, the stronger your response from that audience. And this applies directly to your hook. So if you say, "Entrepreneurs, listen up," you're going to get mild interest from that broad audience of entrepreneurs. Everyone thinks they're an entrepreneur, right? If you say real estate investors in Florida, you're going to get a much stronger response from a much more specific group of entrepreneurs. And if you say, if your lead cost is over $50, immediately you're going to get attention from people with that exact problem. If you say B2B SaaS founders struggling with the new Meta Andromeda update, people like me are going to stop and watch that video. Because no matter how broad your audience isn't everyone. Like, it's impossible for your audience to be anyone. And because your audience is specific, you should try your best whenever possible to name them, reference their specific situation. The narrower you can get in your hook, the more likely they feel that you are talking directly to them, and the more effective your hook is going to be. And the second reason we don't use generic hook lists is the best hooks don't actually sound like hooks. Like, if people can tell you are trying to hook them in a video, it's already not working. Your audience has seen thousands of videos at this point. This is in 2010 when internet videos are a new thing. They know when someone is begging for attention on social media. And I'll be honest, it used to work a few years ago. Back when I was first starting, 2020 on social media was easy. But now the audience is sick and tired of it. And if you make it too obvious that you're trying to force them to watch a video to hold their attention, they're going to ignore it. And they're going to think less of you for it. And at the end of the day, the best evidence that you can deliver value in a hook isn't saying that I will deliver value, I promise, watch the video. It's actually delivering value immediately, getting right to the good part of the content. My real biggest issue with hooks is that most people are just begging with those hooks. Most bad hooks are just begging for attention. They delay the value. They make it less convenient for the viewer to get what they're coming for, which is whatever they're interested in. They ask people to trust you before you've earned any trust. Now, when trying to create a strong hook for your content, you should think about 2 elements. One, which is the promise. What value do you promise you'll give your viewer for watching the content? And 2, what proof can you show that they should believe you that you can actually deliver on that promise? So if you do just a promise alone saying, here's how to get leads, right? It's very generic. It's uncompelling. Unless they already know who you are, there's no reason to believe that some random stranger on the internet can get you leads. But if you do a proof and a promise, for example, here's how we generated 500 qualified leads for real estate agents in just 30 days, that is 1, a very specific outcome, but 2, demonstrating evidence you've done it by showing historically your results. So if you notice the pattern, the proof isn't just that you're saying, trust me, I'm an expert, or hoping that people trust you without even calling to it, but it's a specific result or a number or some kind of outcome that makes that promise instantly credible. Now, what we've talked about so far is discussing what you say, but people also respond very strongly to what they see in the first frame of the video. So how you're set up, what you have on video is actually very important. And some visual hooks that you could use potentially are professional lighting and framing. Like, it immediately signals high quality. If you're using a nice camera, if you look professional, it sets you apart from everyone else on social media who might just be filming on their phone with an unprofessional background. Second is having a clean and uncluttered background. If you're filming out of your basement, it's going to put the focus on your basement and less focus on you, the professional who's trying to communicate with your audience. Next is having direct eye contact with the camera. It creates confidence. Just like you're talking to someone that you'd be lecturing or consulting, you want to be able to look at the camera directly instead of being very distracted. Next, the text on screen that you could have could reinforce your verbal hook. Roughly 70 to 80% of people watching content on social media watch it without audio. So if you have captions going throughout your entire video, as well as text on screen with a hook to let people know what the actual video is about, you'll be able to get their attention even if they can't hear what you're saying. Now, one more piece of advice that I'll give you about the hook is if you're struggling a lot with the hook, if you just can't figure out what the most interesting part of your video is, the problem might not even be what the hook is. It might be that you're not making videos that your audience cares about or what you care about, or that you're not even framing an interesting enough topic to connect to real problems. So before you write your hook, I always recommend people to ask, like, is this a genuinely valuable video to my specific audience? Does it actually solve a problem that people care about? Is there something surprising or counterintuitive or high stakes about this specific thing that I'm talking about? If so, use that as the hook. Would I stop scrolling if I saw this exact video from my competitor? Would I be interested in what they have to say? And if the answer is no, try reframing the topic or what the video is actually about, or just picking something different. The bottom line is the best hooks on social media, the best way to get people's attention doesn't feel like a way to get their attention. It feels like someone getting straight to the point with something actually interesting that they want to talk about. So stop begging for people's attention and start actually earning it in those first few seconds. The most common issue we see with first-time clients is that they read their script like a blog post. They're written in a very formal writing voice. They're packed with big words and transition between sentences that work when you're reading stuff, but like it sounds very awkward in conversation. And then when they go to film that blog post, it feels really unnatural. They speak like they're reading something written by ChatGPT. They stumble over their words. The pacing's off, right? The audience feels like something ain't right. And oftentimes the core problem with that written kind of content that's not written for their speaking voice is that there's just too much unnecessary content. Like there are way too many words. Almost every first revision we do with clients cuts entire sentences and paragraphs out of their scripts because the information might not be wrong, but you just don't need it. You're wasting your audience's time by over-explaining. And on short form, where they expect things to be really quick, they will just scroll past your video. And the way I like to think about this is the value to time principle. The value your audience gets must justify every second of time they spend watching. Now, there's no specific limit to how long or how short your videos should be, because some topics need 30 seconds of explanation, some need 90. But a really quick and easy way to tell is if your entire argument can fit into one single sentence, you probably don't have enough substance to justify a video. You can either pick a different topic that requires more nuance, or just write it out as a tweet, like a single sentence on X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it. An example of this is you should diversify your investments. Like, that's not a video, that's a fortune cookie. There's no depth, there's no proof, there's nothing about the video can leave the person saying, I learned something. But at the same time, if your video is too long, if you're explaining things your audience already knows, spelling out obvious things that don't add value, for example, like now, before we get into the specific strategy, I want to give you some context about why this matters. You see, in business, it's really important to understand your metrics. And a lot of people don't pay attention to their numbers, and that is actually a big mistake. So let's talk about one very specific metric that changed everything for me. Like, that's way too much preamble. No one wants to listen to that. And you didn't even tell them what the number was. This could ideally be much shorter of an introduction and probably the rest of the script as well. This one metric changed my business. Customer acquisition cost. You see how in the second one we even mentioned what it was, in the first one after like a whole 3 sentences we didn't? Another way to think about this is if someone can watch your video one time and be completely done with it forever and never have to go back to it because they understood everything, you can probably do better. You'd ideally want to make your content reference worthy. So the best short form content is so packed full of value that people want to rewatch it. They feel like they have to go around a second time because there's just so much stuff in there and it was very impressive. They'll save it for later. Not because you hid information or talked too fast, like those are cheap tricks, but because you delivered so much actionable insight that they need to watch it a second time just to fully absorb it all from that one video. What would you say your audience's reading level is at? Because here's a number that might surprise you. 54% of the entire US population reads below a 6th grade reading level. Meaning, if you write content above a 6th grade reading level, you are automatically excluding more than half of the potential people in America. And yes, this includes some of those really successful business owners or executives, qualified buyers who could buy what you're selling, who just don't have an interest in consuming very highly intellectual content. And this isn't even about intelligence. It's about making your content more accessible. It's about making it easier to understand and retain. Because really complex language doesn't make you sound smarter. Not always. But it does always make you harder to understand. And so on short form, If people have to work and struggle to understand what you're saying and piece the content together with context, they probably won't want to watch. For our client videos, we aim for a reading level of 6th grade or lower, regardless of niche, regardless of how sophisticated your audience is, we have to keep it accessible. And my biggest videos, the ones that generated hundreds of thousands of views, millions of views, and converted those views into massive business revenue for Fortune 500 companies, those average a 3rd grade reading level. Not because the ideas are simple, like I'm talking about financial modeling and investing, but because the language I choose to use is really clear. And if you say, my content is too complex to explain that simply, I argue no, it's not. Mark Rober, he's a famous NASA JPL engineer. He makes videos on YouTube about physics and engineering and how the world works. And his audience is mostly children. He's one of the biggest YouTubers in the world. And if he can explain rocket science to kids, you can find a way to explain your business concept to a 6th grade reading level. And keeping your reading level at 6th grade or lower solves a few different problems all at once. First, it makes it more accessible. So you're not excluding half of your potential audience just because they have to work too hard to understand you, especially while scrolling through social media and being distracted. Second, you get better comprehension. So even sophisticated audiences process simple language faster. Like they get through it easier. They will understand your point immediately instead of having to think about it for a second. And third, you're going to improve retention. So the less cognitive effort that you require to understand your videos, the longer people are going to watch. Simple sentences let them focus on what you're actually saying and they stick around a lot longer, which promotes your content even more with the algorithms. My recommendation for people struggling with their reading level is to write your scripts and then run them through Hemingway Editor. It's hemingwayapp.com. It's a free tool that analyzes your writing and it gives you a grade level that you're writing at. And it even highlights the specific words or sentences or structures that you need to change to make it more simple. And essentially it converts something that is heavily scripted into more natural conversation. Because when you're talking naturally, you automatically use shorter sentences, you use really common words and very direct language. Like you don't use the word utilize in conversation, you say the word use. You don't say facilitate the implementation, whatever that even means. You say help them do it. Right? And if you're writing in your natural speaking voice, your reading level will naturally drop below 6th grade. That's how most people in the human world talk. And that is the point, is just to make it seem more natural. Because in most cases, clear communication is the best sign of mastery. If Einstein could explain relativity to just about anyone, and Mark Rober can explain rocket science to children, you can find a way to explain your business concept at a 6th grade reading level. Now, before you create a single piece of content, you need to understand what already works in your space. Not so you can just copy it, but so you don't waste months testing stuff that your competitors have already proven don't work. There's a very strategic value to competitor research. And one is that you learn what good looks like in your niche. Like every industry has different standards for pacing and hooks and topics and like what the content actually looks like. What works for fitness creators won't work for B2B SaaS. You need to calibrate for what is already successful in your space and what your audience expects. Second, you also create very clear direction before you actually start filming your content. Because without a vision of where you're going, we can't help you get there. You can't even help yourself. Market research gives you that vision of what the goal should be so that when you work with our team or with your social media manager or on social media, you are executing on a plan that you understand and can clearly point to and agree with. And lastly, you save months of trial and error. Like 1 hour of research up front saves you dozens of hours of hypothesizing or creating content that never would have worked in the first place. Again, very successful clients do not skip this step. You have to understand what your goal is before you start trying to pursue something. And if you want some tactical ways to do this, I've got 2. The first one is an Instagram follow strategy. So this is just passive consumption. You start a brand new Instagram account on a phone where you don't have a whole bunch of account history, no feed history of scrolling. You want to start fresh. This gives you a very clean slate. Instagram is going to serve you content based on only who you follow and not all of your years of past behavior on social media. Second, you find one single person that your target audience is already watching. Just one. It could be someone in your niche. It could be slightly adjacent. It could be a competitor. It could be just some interest thing that your audience watches that is not related to your business at all. Regardless, you want to know who is creating content for the people that you want to reach, your audience. Step 3, you follow that person and look at that little drop-down menu that Instagram gives you. Instagram's going to serve you about 32 suggested accounts, which are competitors with similar audiences and similar industries, saying if you follow this person, you're probably going to follow other people like this, just like your audience. And the people who watch that person watch these accounts. They are competing for the same eyeballs just like you. Then you're going to follow all of those accounts and then repeat. And if you follow every suggested account and then did the same for their accounts, you would end up with 1,000 total competitors just on Instagram alone that you're following. So when people say, oh, I have no competitors on social media, like they're just not even looking. They are there. They're very easy to find. Just to rephrase this, if you have potential customers, people that want to buy your stuff, those people are probably already on social media buying other stuff from other people. All you have to do is find who they're buying from already and match their style of content. The next step is just to scroll for 1 hour. This is the most important part. Set a timer and just scroll through your feed for a whole hour, watching videos in your niche and liking the ones that you actually like, that you'd want to create. What you're learning during this hour is content formats that work. Whether you should do talking head, whether you should do B-roll, whether you should do text overlays, some short form written content, some long form written content. You learn hooks that stop the scroll, topics that get traction and engagement, what people are saying in the comment section, visual presentation standards. So do you have to have this fancy lighting and framing, some fancy editing, or can you pull it back a little bit, make it more simple? How people structure their videos. So do they have a hook, value, and payoff? Or do they have something that is a little bit more organic feeling? The tone and energy that resonates. It's do you want to come across as the lawyer who is super cut and dried, very professional, always wears a suit because you're representing business owners? Or do you want to come across as the lawyer that's approachable and funny and he's relaxed and he wears jeans because you have a lot of personal injury cases and you need to relate better to your audience? To just look at a bunch of content, rot your brain for a whole hour. But my most successful clients, they never skip this step. They come to the first strategy call with my team with a very clear understanding of what good content in their space looks like and a vision for what their content should be because they understand their competition. That single hour of scrolling up front saves them several hours over the next few months. And really your entire marketing journey is better because of it. My team will of course help with this market research, but you have to be active in understanding the nuance of your specific industry. And just to be really clear, it's not enough to have us do this for you, do the market research for you. For example, if you're a doctor with a specialty in gut biome optimization, my team might be able to help put together the most viral videos in your niche. Sure, we can do that market research, but it is up to you to understand which videos with millions of views have inaccurate information in them. Which content creators currently in your space that you are competing with are bad actors. And if one of your competitors is just spreading tons of bad information, your deep understanding of your specialty will change how that information informs your strategy. Do you make similar videos or do you make response videos to counter them? You have to participate in this step or you're not going to be successful. I'm just going to be honest for you. No one is going to do the market research and interpret it for you because you are the expert in what you do and you are the one that is at the end of the day going to be on camera. You have to know what you're talking about. Now, I'll mention not all competitors are worth studying. Generally 80% of your inspiration and 80% of the goals that you set are going to come from just 20% of the accounts that you find. But during your hour of scrolling, you want to pay attention to which one of these other accounts resonate with your style and it feels like something that you could replicate, which one of those topics that they're talking about align with what you talk about, whose pacing and energy matches your natural communication style because you're going to model them at the start. And you're not going to know who those 20% are until you find them. But once you do find those people, you want to spend more time watching their specific videos, watch their top videos, notice their patterns, watch their worst videos, understand what's different, model what they're doing at the start of their success. And just like you didn't start your business with only original thoughts only, you probably modeled your business after another successful business, right? You're going to do the same exact for your marketing strategy, for your content. And you're not copying them. You're just learning the language of your niche so that you know how to speak it. And then this research is a flywheel itself. If you scroll for that hour, Instagram serves you more and more relevant content. So you're going to discover more new competitors and get even better inspiration, get a cleaner picture of what works specifically in your space. You can't just do this for 10 minutes and call it done. You have to go through an hour to get to the very best last 10 minutes. Now, there is another way that you could do this, and it's with some sorting tools. So if you can very quickly identify your competitors, you can study what works for them specifically and the best performing content they've ever posted, not just what they're posting today or last week. You can look at historically what have been the most successful videos. And there's a lot of internet browser extensions that let you do this. You can get an extension that scrapes all of Instagram data and sorts the top videos by performance. Or you can go on TikTok and sort the videos by the most popular there. And the tools that you're going to use for this, they often get taken down. I'm not even going to make a recommendation for them because Instagram very frequently changes how they display the information. So any specific tool that you use this week could not be working next week, but there's always a dozen of these tools and the principle is the same. You install the extension, you go look at the competitor's Instagram profile on your browser, you click the extension and sort their most viewed reels by most viewed or most comments if you want the controversial ones. And you're going to see all of their content organized by performance. So you can instantly tell what their their million view video was versus their 10,000 view video and what the difference is. What topics very consistently get the most traction? What formats perform best? Is it short looping videos, or is it talking head things, or is it text-based? What drives the most engagement, like comments instead of just views? This tells you what's working for your competitors and gives you the best ideas to test for your own content. The time you spend on research will give you a better starting point, and the time you spend testing will give you the results. So this video in particular is critical because you can have massive success on social media and make absolutely no money from it if you don't understand how to match your content strategy to your business and offer type. So does this apply to you? Here's some diagnostics really quick. Pay special attention in this module if any of these apply to you. If one, you're an expert struggling to create an offer and understand what to sell or how to sell it. Like maybe you have the knowledge of how to do something, but you don't have the knowledge of how to package it and sell it over and over again in a reproducible form. Or maybe you have multiple different things that you sell, but you aren't making $100,000 a month yet from your business. You haven't reached the size of business where it's very quickly repeatable. Oftentimes in that case, something is broken in your positioning. Like from one offer, if it's truly good enough, if you have a wide enough TAM, you should be able to get to $100,000 a month with a business and have multiple employees supporting that. If not, adding more offers, a fourth offer, a fifth offer, a 10th offer, might just add more complexity that your business, without that staff supporting you, can't handle. A third option is maybe your offer doesn't work on paid ads. So if you have an offer that you sell to people, but if you're trying to sell it to a cold audience, people that don't know you or trust you, you struggle to get those people as clients. What you really need is to meet the person in person, shake their hand, sit down for a coffee. If that's the only way you can sell to your clients, you probably need to have a little bit more structure around your offer. Or maybe you have scalability issues. If doubling your fulfillment overnight would break your business right now or make it unprofitable, the delivery method of the offer probably also needs to improve. So if any of those sound like you, what you're about to learn will hopefully help improve the problem. So there's really two types of offers for most people, products and services. It's not binary. Like you can have a continuum. For example, software is usually right in the middle. They call it software as a service. You're purchasing a product, which is the software, but there is service attached to it to make sure that you get usability out of it. But understanding where you fall in this product versus service continuum tells you exactly how you should be selling on social media. So diagnosing which one you have. When someone asks you, what do I get if I work with you or if I buy your thing? If you can explain it in 3 words or less, if it's tangible, you probably have a product-based offer. Think of sheet of plywood, or think of 2x4. You can see it. You can touch both of those. You can describe it in detail regardless of whether you're getting this 2x4. Like it's wood. You can compare it to competitors from Lowe's or Home Depot before buying it. All of the specs are available up front, the size, the weight, the composition, the price. The deliverable is clear and it is standardized. Those are product-based offers. Everything that you see about that product is easy to understand before making the transaction. It is crystal clear what people are paying for, which makes it very easy to sell. And so the opposite is true, where if you sell a service, packaging it more like a product will actually help make it more defined, help make it easier to sell. Because with service-based offers, if you've ever been on a sales call and someone asks, so what exactly do I get? It's probably because you have a very service-based offer that is not presented at all like a product. For example, maybe you sell coaching or training or some kind of consulting or agency work. Those are all services. The results that clients get are sometimes complex and difficult to quantify in just a couple of words. Like you can describe what happens, but it's nearly impossible to compare your coaching against a competitor's coaching without buying both of them first and knowing the difference. And that's why service offers are harder to sell. Like if your customer understood everything about what your coaching teaches or what your expertise buys them, they wouldn't need the coaching. Like that's why they need coaching, is because they don't know. So many coaching products are locked behind this no refund policy because once customers learn it, the value has been delivered. Another way to think about it is, how does your book compare to your competitor's book? Like you don't really know until you read both. Maybe yours has more pages, or maybe it's like $5 cheaper, but what really matters is how much better your book is, which is what they would actually pay for, the value that's inside of it that they can extract. And service offers are often results-based. Like what is the outcome of someone going through that service, not deliverables-based, like plywood or how many pages in a book they get, right? Now, once you understand what type of offer you have, you can understand what type of content you need to make. For example, if you have a product-based offer, you can sell to cold audiences with just top-of-funnel content, the tangible thing that they can get and can be very easily understood, can be valued by a stranger who's never heard of you before. So if they see a top of funnel video, if they see something that doesn't build trust and doesn't communicate a lot of value, they can still understand, oh, that's a 2x4. I know how to get value out of that. You can lead with what they get, like the deliverables, the specs, the features. You can show it in action. You can have demos or like use cases or do before and afters. Those are also really great. Or you can have specific comparisons on price or on quality or on speed compared to your competitors. And you can focus on differentiating yourself, why yours is better than your competitors. And you can also probably ask for the sale earlier because they don't need to trust you deeply to be able to buy your plywood, for example. You're not building deep trust. You're just demonstrating the value. You're giving them a couple of quick ideas. Now, if you have a service-based offer, building trust first is going to be really important. You're going to have to focus a lot more on middle and bottom of funnel. And this is a lot harder because if you're selling an outcome, something that is mostly intangible, like knowledge or information, you're going to have a hard time selling that to the audience. You're going to need to spend more time with that audience, explaining what you actually do, what success looks like, why they should trust that you can even deliver. And so your content strategy is going to prioritize building trust way more before asking for the sale. You want to make them product aware first. They need to understand what they're getting. Then you need to demonstrate your expertise with free value that you give out to them. So some tactical content, some frameworks, case studies, whatever you can show that demonstrates you know what you're talking about. And only then ask for the sale once they are ready and already trust you. Because before someone buys your expertise, they have to first trust that you even have expertise. And that's very difficult to demonstrate visually. Most of your content should be focused on building that expertise if you're trying to sell it instead of actually selling it. So a really quick example, this is how Tony Robbins sells it. Most mindset and performance coaches often say that their biggest competitor is Tony Robbins, arguably one of the biggest mindset and performance coaches in the world. But when they come to me and say, Tony Robbins is my competitor, I need to make content just like him, it is false. Tony Robbins isn't their actual competitor. Tony Robbins is so big that he doesn't have a cold audience. He isn't unknown to almost anyone in the world. He can sell an intangible service like coaching to relative strangers because it is productized. It's Tony Robbins coaching, like it's trademarked. His service is a product because his brand equity is so massive. Everyone is warm traffic to him. And if someone doesn't recognize him, the testimonials and decades of case studies, him talking to former presidents instantly builds trust. And so the mistake that coaches make when they try to do the same thing, they look at his offer, it's intangible coaching at a certain price point with a certain delivery method, and they say, I tried the same offer and it didn't work for me. What they're missing isn't a difference in the product or the offer or the price point. It's the brand and the warm audience that Tony has built over decades. It is all of the top and middle of funnel content, decades worth of videos that has made his coaching essentially commoditized. Another example is actually we sold the same service in 2 different ways, depending on the audience, whether it was cold or warm. So for warm audiences, if they already know, like, and trust me, we pitch them the service. Like, you can work with Daniel and his team, or even specific members of his team that have worked with other big brands like Dave Ramsey or NerdWallet or whatever. They trust me, so they want the intangible thing, which is coaching, the expertise, the partnership, the mentorship. That's what they value most. But for cold audiences, which is also a very large part of our demographic, they've never heard of me, which is fine. We pitch the product. It's social media marketing. It's X amount of views. Like, we can easily quantify what they're getting. It's X amount of views. We post videos on social media about your brand. They can price shop it against competitors and see who has more reviews and testimonials. It is tangible. It is comparable. And we package it specifically that way for a cold audience because we know they won't trust the coaching or the expertise. And at the end of the day, both audiences get the same exact thing. They get both. They get the complete system, the coaching, the team, the frameworks, all the stuff that's actually required to get a good result. But the pitch changes based on the level of trust because we know those service pitches work well on warm traffic because they already know and trust who they're working with. And the product pitches work on cold traffic because they can quantify what they're getting. And so if you position your offer as a product, if you can productize your services, it's going to be way easier to explain. You're going to be able to sell it better to cold traffic. And then that gives you a massive advantage, which is you can just go out and buy customers with ads, people that have never seen you before. Or you can go out and make top of funnel videos that get millions of views that also drive you traffic. But if you sell your expertise, if you're a doctor, lawyer, accountant, that's fine. You're just going to have a longer sales cycle. You're going to have to sell to warm audiences, which means you have to get cold traffic and then you have to warm them up before you can make a sale. And that's what most people on social media have to do. But if you can productize your service, you're just short-circuiting the entire trust-building process for cold audiences. And oftentimes this is easier to figure out than to get millions of people to first know you and then to trust you and then to buy from you on social media. And while we as a marketing company would love to build out this top, middle, and bottom of funnel thing to get you tons of views and convert them into warm traffic and then help you make that sale, it's going to be way easier if we can shortcut all that and just sell a productized service. So please audit your offer, look at what you're selling, and try to make content that both matches it and makes it easier to sell. There are 2 keys to making a great offer, specifically for service-based businesses marketing themselves on social media. The first is desirable. Will people actually pay for it in excess of the cost. And the second is profitable. Meaning, is it profitable right now? And can you keep profit high as you scale and grow to deliver more of it? And if you don't have a $500,000 a month business right now with really good profit margins, this is actually probably going to be the most important video in this entire thing. And here's why. Most people focus on building the best product. But the best product rarely makes the most money. It's the most desirable product that does. And we'll cover both of these, but we're going to spend most of the time on desirability because if you're under $500,000 a month, that's definitely the biggest issue with your business. The first thing is you want to make it more desirable. And I'll be honest, no one comes to me saying, my offer isn't desirable. Like you wouldn't say that, right? Instead, they say, my leads suck. My audience is dumb. My audience is broke. No one understands the value. But almost always, the issue there is something that they can control, which is how desirable that offer that they're making actually is. And you might actually know people who need what you do and how to deliver the best results for them. But it's often very different from what that customer wants and what they would actually pay for. So here's the problem. If your customers know exactly what they need, if they knew how to get the best results for themselves with a service, they wouldn't need your service helping them understand that. They would already have the solution themselves. Like you hire an accountant because they understand accounting. If you understood accounting, you could just go do it yourself. That is exactly what you're selling them, the information that they don't yet have. If you're a lawyer, you're selling the information of how to represent them in court. You can't tell them this is exactly what you say and you have to say it like this and this is what you need because they don't even know exactly what they need. They don't even understand what the processes are to go through a court case. Like that's why they need you. And coincidentally, that's also why I'm doing this video. Like a lot of businesses come to us just wanting help with their marketing. And here I am talking about improving our offer. Like I know that's not what you asked for, but at the end of the day, a marketing company is only good as the company we are marketing. So if you can't convert these views that we get you, none of this is going to work anyways. So let me give you a very quick example from my own business. Version 0 of our company, before we even went to market and selling this, was exactly what people needed to grow a business on social media in the shortest time possible. Cost tens of thousands of dollars for a single month to work with me. And the two people that took me up on this offer got hundreds of thousands of views, thousands of followers, made hundreds of thousands of dollars. Their business completely blew up. It changed their lives. And almost all of their business now happens from social media. We were able to get those results for our clients in less than 90 days. It was a killer offer. It was absolutely the best thing in my experience that's ever been on the market. And it's not even close, but it required a lot of time from the business owner. And despite how incredible those results were, people that we talked to on sales calls, they thought they were so incredible that they didn't even believe them. They didn't think they could even get those results for themselves because they were so amazing. And so they weren't willing to pay tens of thousands of dollars a month. And it sold terribly. And it still does. And we still offer it as a special program, like talk to your account manager about it if you want to be considered. It's by recommendation only. We screen those applicants very heavily, but you work with me and it's a very expensive, very well worth it program in my opinion, but it doesn't matter about my opinion. It's never going to matter what my opinion is because it's never going to work as a front-end offer because I'm not selling to myself. I am selling people that are going to be my clients. And those people are hard to convince sometimes because they are solution unaware. And so on the front end, we don't sell that. We sell a much cheaper way to work with us so that people can at least get started with something. So instead of losing the lead altogether because it's too expensive and it's inaccessible, we are at least able to get a client and help them somehow. And if that very expensive offer was the only thing I ever sold, my business would not be around today. I had to find something different to sell, something more accessible, something easier, because no matter how good I think that expensive thing is, no matter how confident I am that it's the best thing in the market, unless the people who are able to pay me for it think so too, it doesn't actually matter because it's not going to sell. And the core problem is with selling service-based things is you know more than your customer does. You know what will work. You know what won't work. You know what they actually need, probably from real earned experience that your customer doesn't yet have, which is why they'd pay you in the first place. But if your customer doesn't know it too, if they don't agree with you, if they don't have that same experience of decades that you do, if they don't know your product is as great as you think it is, it doesn't matter because they have no way of finding out because unless you can nail the offer and sell them first and then potentially on the back end introduce them to some other stuff that's going to fix their actual problems, they're never going to get to experience it. And the inverse is also true. Like I'm sure you've seen competitors of yours with terrible products. You know that those products don't work, or they're nowhere near as good as yours, but they seem to be doing well. Maybe they seem to be doing better than you. And it doesn't matter that your product or service or whatever is better because people are buying the other thing that's potentially worse. And unless people buy both products to compare, they're never going to know the difference. And one more time for people in the back, it's not always the best products that make the most money. It is the most desirable products that make the most money. So at the start, I probably wouldn't even focus on creating the best product, at least not at first. Like you don't want your product to be bad, but you simply don't have millions of dollars of market testing required to know what you could even do to make a better product. So instead of chasing perfection at the very start, launch as soon as possible, then use those first few customers to make the product better for everyone in the future. And then for the people in the future, you can charge more for that better product. Now, that's not to say you should start from scratch. There's a couple of ways to model other successful products. One option is to just copy a competitor that has an offer in your exact niche. So find someone in your industry who is already winning. Look at their offer structure, look at their price point, look at their positioning, and do it better. And just to be super clear, doing it better is not doing it better on the delivery side. That's not enough of an advantage because, again, to your customers, until they buy both products, they don't know what your delivery looks like. They don't know what the other person's delivery looks like. However, being known for doing delivery better is a big advantage. One of the ways you can do that is by having a big brand on social media. So if you have more or better testimonials or more or better followers, or if you have some other kind of implied trust, that's how some of the biggest brands in the world build themselves up and differentiate themselves from people that have been around for decades. Mr. Beast with Feastables, for example. Mr. Beast, a content creator, is taking on Hershey's. Hershey's was a direct-to-consumer brand with ads and tons of brand equity over decades. But Mr. Beast used organic content and launched a Hershey's competitor. It crushed. They didn't do anything different with the product positioning. It's candy, it's for kids. But because he had a lot of implied trust, he was able to better differentiate himself on the front end to where the customers perceived his product as better, even though it was functionally basically the same. Or Logan Paul with Prime, another really big content creator. Logan Paul took on Gatorade, a very established company that spent very heavily on ads and had been in the industry for decades. Logan Paul used organic social media to sell basically the same thing, and he made billions competing with them. It's one of the coolest things about social media is you can actually run this play very successfully. And if you're selling with social media, you have the advantage of lower relative marketing costs. Because you're not spending as much on ads, because you're posting content that's free, you can structure your offer to have better lifetime gross profit than your competitors because you're not paying out a large portion to ads, which gives you far more enterprise value and ability to scale than all of your competitors who are traditional marketing spending on ads. And a second option, instead of modeling a competitor, is to adapt a proven offer to a new demographic. There are several multiple million-dollar businesses that all they did was model a male-dominant product that was already really selling successfully and just sold it to a non-male demographic. Like an example, one of our clients runs a very successful stock trading group, and stocks are generally dominated by male demographic. That's who's mostly interested in stock trading. And our client just teaches that same exact thing, same exact material to women. Multiple millions of dollars per year doing the exact same thing that works for men, now for women. How revolutionary. And a second example is actually remote sales training and staffing. So sales is mostly dominated by men. There are a lot of men selling it to younger men. But there's a certain lady on social media who recently, over the last couple of years, got extremely popular. Millions of followers, tens of millions of dollars of enterprise value, and she does the exact same thing, but sells it to young women, the sales training and the staffing. And there's actually multiple people competing with her now, doing this at a multiple seven-figure per month revenue level, selling the sales training that's been really successful for the last decade now to women. You can be very successful just modeling what works for a slightly different demographic. Now, the second part to making a successful offer is making it profitable. And sometimes people set a goal of like, I want to make $1 million a month. But what they really mean is they want the profits that come with $1 million a month business. But in most cases, $100,000 per month business, top line, with $50,000 a month profit is way more manageable and stable and overall better than $1 million per month business top line with the same $50,000 profit. And that's because you have less operational complexity at a lower revenue level. But also with the $100,000 example, profit is a larger percentage of top line revenue. And if you can increase top line revenue by 5%, it probably won't result in a massive increase in cost, which means you can put more to your bottom line with every new dollar in revenue you bring in. Which brings me back to the whole point. If you are under $100,000 a month in revenue, or if you're under even $500,000 a month in revenue, the biggest recommendation I make to most clients is just to keep it super simple. Making your business too complex, having way too many decision makers or key players or parts of your offer or different types of service delivery really limits how far you can take it, or if you're even able to step out of the business without everything breaking around you. And while both desirability and profitability are important, there's a specific order that I recommend most people do this in. And because the best product doesn't always win, the most desirable product usually does. You want to first make it desirable and then make it profitable. So find out what people want, what they will pay for, not what they need, but what they're actually willing to exchange money for. And then you want to model what's already working. So how are people getting that product or service delivery right now, either in your exact niche or a slightly different niche, or maybe in your exact niche with a slightly different demographic? Then you want to add your advantage in, and then you want to be able to launch and actually sell your product get market data, and only then refine for profitability and grow. So once you have customers, once you have feedback, that's when you make it profitable and that's when you scale. And once you have your offer and deliverables figuring out, changing the pricing is the easiest way to make it very profitable, because a small change in price can dramatically change profit margins. Like a 10% price increase doesn't just add 10% to your top line revenue, it often can double or even triple your profit because of how the costs can potentially stay the same. So here's an example of exactly how. So at $5,000, let's say you sell one unit, you have revenue of $5,000, the costs to deliver are $3,500, leaving you with $1,500 profit, which is a 30% profit margin. But at $6,000, which is a 20% price increase, you have revenue of $6,000, the cost stays the same at $3,500, and profit is now $2,500. So your profit margins have gone from 30% to 42%, which is a 67% increase in profit from just a 20% increase in price. Now let's look at the inverse of that. So at $4,000, which is a 20% price decrease, you have revenue of $4,000, cost of $3,500, profit of $500. The margins are 12.5%. So you cut your profit by 70% just to give a 20% discount to your customers, because 20% discount is all they feel. You lost most of your profit. Or if you go even lower, $3,500, which is a 30% price decrease, you're basically doing this for zero profit. There's no profit margin. You're working for free. So these small changes in price can have massive impacts on profitability as long as your delivery cost stays the same. And this is why you should always test higher price points first. Because if you can sell the same exact offer for 100% more and only lose half of your customers, you are significantly more profitable. You're essentially leaving the same amount of top line revenue with only half of the delivery costs. So you shouldn't be stuck on a specific offer or a specific price. You should always test higher and higher price points, because the easiest thing that you can do in business is increase cost so that you can become more profitable. And most people by default, they underprice out of fear. They think, oh, if I charge more, no one's going to buy. But oftentimes the opposite can be true, where higher prices signal higher value. And so the customers that do buy at higher price points are often better people to work with. They're more committed. They're easier to work with. They're likely to get easier results for, because they've gotten results more for themselves, because they've accumulated money to be able to afford your thing. They're richer. In most B2B cases, this also means they're smarter, because they've been able to figure out how to acquire more resources. And so talking about people that are richer than you, look at the people in your industry that are richer than yourself and model their pricing. I usually don't agree with copying just what other businesses are doing, because most businesses suck and they're stupid. But if you know someone is doing better than you, skip some of that testing and just learn from them. They've already done the testing. They've probably millions of dollars of more testing than you do. Just use their experience as your baseline and then test higher and potentially test lower. Don't be afraid to charge more. Assume that most people underprice and act like it. Worst case scenario, worst case, if you overcharge, your pricing isn't set in stone. It's one of the easiest things to change in your business. Decrease your price. Everyone's going to love that, because the person you're selling to tomorrow has no idea what you charged today. And one more time for the people in the back, raise your prices. Thank me later. Now, this is a quick tutorial of our Google Drive setup for our raw files and edited content. This makes it easy to upload files for your editor and have them organize everything. So generally we have two folders, one for raw files. This is really the only folder that you need to worry about. You upload content into it. And then we have another folder for all of the edited content. This is where your team is going to be taking all that content and storing it before and after posting. So we've got a couple of different subfolders here as well. It's really nice to have as you grow on social media, but your team is going to be managing all this for you, so you don't have to worry about it. For example, here I have some of those assets organized by upload date, so while they're being used, and then archived into another folder after they're done posting. My editor organizes a bunch of those images that we use internally for content. There's a bunch of old raw files that are no longer active, and a couple more here that we're actively editing on, and then we'll drag those and drop those into the old folder once they're done. Further, in B-roll, we have a bunch of organized content by different niches and categories of content that we film. And then in the edited content, we have stuff that's ready to post. So we also have a couple of subfolders underneath there. So one for ads, ready to post, one for long form content that's ready to post, one for short form content that's ready to post, one for scripts for that content, all organized by medium, and then within that, years and months that the content was made. So this is the visual hierarchy of everything that we do for content at the very highest level. But as a business owner, the only thing that you need to worry about is just throwing assets into the raw files folder and knowing that with this system, everything else is going to get organized for you as needed. Frame.io here is the software that lets you give feedback to your editors. It works better than any other solution because it allows a lot of precision in the feedback you give. And I can show you what that looks like here. So click on the folder that you've got for yourself, and then click on potentially a single video here. You can mute the video, and down here you can play the video and you can scrub through it, this little scrubber here. But let's say, for example, I don't like the color of the font right here. So at this exact timestamp, I can leave a note, font color, and that will appear only on this specific part of the video, so the editor knows exactly what I'm talking about. I can also change it to apply to multiple sections of the video by clicking on the timestamp here and dragging it through a certain part of the B-roll. Say, I don't like this clip, and so my editor will know exactly what clip I'm talking about because it's for the duration of that clip. So this entire section here can be removed. And if you're a production manager, social media manager, whoever's reviewing the content before it actually goes out, like I highly recommend changing the watch speed of the content you're reviewing here down to 50%, watching it slowed down. That way you can really look at every single word that comes onto the screen. It makes it easier to check for spelling mistakes, which will inevitably happen as you get to posting hundreds of videos. But once you're done reviewing something, you can change the status of the video by going back up here to the folder that it's in and changing the status to approved or needs revision or whatever else you want to use. We usually like to change it to one of three options. Our naming convention is needs review. That's usually when an editor first uploads it and like raises their hand saying, hey, this video needs review for the person that's in the actual content to watch and give feedback. In progress is the next stage. So it lets the editor know that I left notes for you. You need to go re-edit some parts of the video, like that part needed different font color or whatever. And then approved is the very last one that we change it to, which some of these are marked as already. That's just mean it's completely done and ready to be moved to a different folder and then eventually posted on social media. So all of these items here are in the for review, and then they'll be eventually moved into approved once they are marked approved. Another cool thing that Frame.io lets you do as an editor is to move files on top of one another and add a version 2. So it's going to replace the previous version. And then you, as the person reviewing the content, can pull up both versions at the same time. You can click this little compare versions thing and it'll show them side by side, demonstrating what changes were made to the edit. So this is the after and this is the before version 1 and version 2. And it's a really quick and easy way to see how changes were made and actually implemented by your editor. Now, once you're satisfied with an edit and it's ready to be posted on social media, like you can say, maybe this one is the final version, it's ready. You can go down here and to download, and then download the original file. You could choose some of these other options here. They're proxy files. They're smaller file sizes, but it's going to be a compressed version, so there's going to be quality lost. So I'd always recommend downloading the original instead. Overall, this is by far the most efficient tool for giving feedback to editors. There's a lot to play around with, but those are the basics, and there's nothing else in the market that even comes close. Now, if you're running paid ads and ignoring organic social media content, or if you're doing organic social media and ignoring paid ads, you are leaving a lot of money on the table either way. After spending $1 million a month consecutively on ads for my company alone, not to mention the multiple millions per month for our clients, the most common difference between people who have success with ads and those who don't are the ones that are good at organic content also do well with paid ads, because most advertisers can't create content that actually works. And so their only solution is to get more people to watch the bad content by paying for those views via ads. So they are burning a budget on creative that doesn't even work because they don't test it organically first. They force those views through paid ads. Or for that matter, they don't even have experience making content that even works in the first place. And so they put a bunch of money behind ads and those don't convert at all. And likewise, if you're only doing organic content, avoiding paid content, you are really limiting your growth potential. And that's because organic content makes your paid ads cheaper, because people recognize you when they've seen your ad if they've also been following you on social media. Your creative is definitely going to be better because you could have potentially tested what works organically and then literally repeat the same video ideas once they're proven with paid ads. You have proof of concept, so you know which message resonates better before wasting money testing on paid ads. And paid ads amplify your organic reach because you can put paid ad budget behind your best best performing organic content for top of funnel. You can target people who might have never otherwise seen you organically because maybe the messaging is just a little bit off. You can control who sees your message by targeting bottom of funnel specific content. And this absolutely is a situation where 2 + 2 = 10. And organic and paid content work together so much better than they work independently. And small businesses can choose to start with either paid or organic. It doesn't matter to me. But if you want a big business, at some point you will need to do both. And doing both sooner rather than later will simply just help you scale faster. So if you want a massive business, you should be doing both. Depending on the scale of content that you're producing, you might consider implementing a software called ManyChat into your business. Now, if you're just getting started, making your first post, your second post on social media, the effort to set up ManyChat probably isn't worth it. And likewise, if you've already spent tens of thousands of dollars a month on ads or organic content, you probably should find a more comprehensive solution for gathering leads. But for the businesses where it does make sense, the businesses right in the middle, they've been posting content for a little while, they don't yet spend tens of thousands of dollars a month on ads. Here's a breakdown of how we recommend implementing ManyChat. So we run two types of automations: comment automations and direct message automations. Comment automations are put onto the videos that you post. So you tell someone either in the video or in the caption of the video to comment a specific word, and when they do so, the automation fires and sends them a direct message. Now, the direct message automations happen in the next step, because once someone comments on a video, we send them a direct message that usually forces some kind of small interaction like clicking a button or replying with a keyword in the direct message. Because once the prospect participates in the direct message, we not only get their info, but now also unlock full DM privileges back and forth and automation capabilities. And after that, we can send them a free resource that they might have asked for, a pre-recorded voice memo. We do that for myself. It builds trust, shows that it's not a salesperson working the leads. And then usually also a note that like, hey, this whole thing, the lead magnet, the pre-recorded voice memo, that was automated, but I will personally check in later. And then we set up automations to direct them to the website, nurture the leads, and hopefully eventually convert them into customers as further stages in the process. And this ManyChat strategy does two things. One, it boosts engagement on your videos because people have to comment to get the free thing, and more comments improves your engagement, which boosts your priority in the algorithm, which creates this flywheel that pushes even more people to comment organically. And two, it bridges the gap between a cold and a warm audience. It turns people who are just watching your content into people who are engaging with your content, people who are direct messaging you and getting direct messages from you. And then it turns those people into actual leads that you can collect information from, or at least follow up with somehow later in your direct messages. Now, if you're working with my team to have ManyChat built out, it'll probably be really robust. But if you want just a quick and dirty version of this, you can reduce it to just one voice note that you can record in 60 seconds. My personal follow-up framework is: thanks for reaching out. Acknowledge somehow that they opted in, that you desperately aren't going to be annoying them. Next, ask a qualifying question. So I ask about their business or content goals and encourage participation in that conversation. Then I say, regardless, I am down to chat. What's your week look like? I can also drop a calendar link if that's easier. You want to make it human, but still make it very easy. Drop the calendar link right after so they can just book in. And then lastly, a message saying, let me know when you got it booked. Notifications get weird sometimes. That way, not responding to that last message or not booking in a call should feel a little awkward, and the lead will have some kind of pull to be able to do what they said they would do, which is book a call. That's it. That's literally all we do. We've closed hundreds of thousands of dollars in deals with that exact system. Now, this video actually comes with a massive doc linked down below. If my team recommended launching a ManyChat funnel for you, don't even worry. Don't open this doc. They will just handle everything. But for those of you that are curious or want to look into ManyChat, this doc is very thorough and it'll give you a lot of the best practices and setup of how we do it. All right, here's what we look for when setting up a social media profile across different types of social media accounts. First, your profile name. It should either be your name or your brand or your product. And across profiles, it needs to be identical. For example, if I'm Daniel Isles on Instagram and Dan I on TikTok, nobody calls me Dan, it's going to be really confusing for audiences to find me across both platforms. And so when deciding on your name or your brand or your product, I always encourage you to use your name versus the actual product or brand, because generally the platforms prioritize personalities over brands, and you will get a boost in viewership, a boost in engagement simply by being a real human, a person, rather than a brand. And anecdotally, there's also tons of examples of individuals having larger accounts than the massive companies that they've built. Look at Elon Musk or Bill Gates. Both of them are multiple times larger in following than the companies that they represent. Even at a smaller scale, Alex Hormozi, hundreds of times more popular than his brand on social media, acquisition.com on Instagram. And the few examples you can find of founders that are smaller than the brands that they represent on social media usually result from those founders that are really small, never having made an honest effort to post themselves anyways. So I recommend you show up as yourself. And choosing how you show up as yourself, the profile picture is probably the most important part. And you want to lean into the different parts that make you a unique type of personality. For example, with a fitness professional, I would use a picture of them at their gym or facility. For a chef, I might use something like them in the kitchen holding a spatula or whatever. A lawyer should have case law books or a bookshelf of some kind behind them. If you don't have a professional recent picture, I highly recommend getting a new one with your new studio. Like my team is going to help you set up the studio, especially if you've got the nicer camera and lights. You can get a really nice looking picture. It only takes a single second to snap that picture before filming to take, and then you can use it as your profile picture. And then for some platforms like Instagram, they'll leave room for text to describe yourself a little bit more underneath your profile picture. You get up to 150 characters, for example, on Instagram, and you want to use them very carefully. You want to explain what you do, who you do it for, and what the actual benefit people get from following you on social media. For example, if you're a fitness coach, you might have a headline like, "I help busy parents get fit without losing time with their kids." So what you do is you help them get fit. Who you do it for is the busy parents. And then what's the benefit for them is that they don't have to sacrifice time with their kids. On Instagram and TikTok, you'll also have an option for a link, which should be the call to action, which you want your ideal clients to do. Either schedule a call with you or see your lead magnet or get information on services that you're providing. It's more than just a link to your home page on your website. In most cases, people finding this link will have already seen a few videos from you. They're interested in learning more about what you do. They're a higher intent audience. So don't send them to your home page. Give them a little bit more than just a generic home site. For example, on my profile, I send people directly to the page where they can apply to work with my team, and they get a short video explaining exactly how my company can help them with their business. And then also below this video, I have a whole bunch of really good examples of good looking profiles that you can look at. Should you start your social media account from scratch? Maybe. So there's a couple different decisions that you want to pay attention to when deciding whether you should start from scratch or post on your existing account and try to make it work. All of them relate to the number of engaged followers you have as a percentage of the total followers you have. And basically, it's just a measure of engagement rate. Like there's no hard and fast rule here. There's no single number that I can pull out as a percentage and say Instagram endorsed this number. But there are a few things that you can pay attention to here. So all relate to the number of engaged followers you have as a percentage of your total followers. So 2 of the following 6 things generally must be true before you even consider starting a brand new account. And I know it sounds like an easy out. It sounds very simple to just start fresh and post on a brand new account. But I promise, talking from experience, it is an incredible amount of effort to go from 0 to 100 on a brand new account. And even just getting that little bit of momentum at the start. Usually that's the biggest sticking point, and being able to not have that issue makes it way easier. So if you don't have to have that experience again, it's much better to just use an existing account. One of the things that you should consider changing your account for is if you've changed your niche. So again, changing your niche will change the amount of engaged followers you have as a percentage of your total followers. For example, if you started out as a plumbing person teaching plumbers how to do plumbing, and then you pivot to real estate coaching, a very small percentage of your existing followers are going to be engaged with this changing content, now talking about real estate, because they're not interested in real estate. They followed you for plumbing. Here's a couple more examples. If you're a real estate agent that transitions to mortgage lending, you're actually probably fine, because the majority of the topics you were talking about, real estate and buying your first home, and a lot of the similar accounts that you're engaging with, people who are interested in buying their first home, they have a lot of overlap. However, if you go from real estate agent to marketing company, it is worth considering restarting your account, because previously you might have been selling to individual home buyers and now you're selling B2B to other companies looking for marketing. Another example, if you transition from a personal account with pictures of your kids and like what you do for fun into a professional company account as a marketing company, there's really no reason to keep your personal content on that account, and none of the content, none of the followers you had from high school are relevant for the new account that you're going to be trying to build for your business. Also, if you've posted viral content that is not within your niche and you accidentally got famous doing something you didn't want to be known for, or like don't actively do in your business now, you could have accumulated tons of followers from that one viral piece of content that are never going to be engaged in this new type of content that you're posting and the kind of content you want to be known for with your business. I had a friend that posted a single viral video, got 100 million views, 100,000 followers from that one video, and it was a dancing video, completely unrelated to the marketing company she had, and unfortunately for years, ever since she had that one successful video, she hasn't been able to get good visibility on her marketing content because her followers, 100,000 of them she got from that one video, are only interested in dancing videos. They're kids, and it's not even relevant. And it completely ruined her opportunity for that account to do what she set out to do on that account. She had to start completely from scratch. Another consideration is if your engagement rate is below 1% consistently on multiple videos. Like if you get 100,000 views on a video, but less than 1,000 likes and comments total, your engagement rate is below 1%. And this could be a reason to start from scratch. Or if you have a video with 10,000 views, but less than 100 likes and comments combined, it's also showing that the audience watching your content isn't really engaged with it. The engagement rate is below 1%, which is categorically low, and it's worth potentially considering starting a new account and pivoting to a new audience. Additionally, if your account is more than 4 years old, like this isn't enough by itself, but it could lead to very low engaged followers. For example, my account I think is like 10 years old, and I don't have any reason to restart it because my current followers are fresh. But if I hadn't done very much in those last 10 years and slowly accumulated followers over those 10 years, it's reasonable to assume that a lot of those followers are either inactive accounts or they're not even real anymore. They've never logged into Instagram, so they don't actually count as followers. And Instagram sees it as you have followers that are not engaging with you, which affects your engaged followers as a percentage of your total followers. Also, if you have multiple community guideline violations, whether you were able to get it appealed or not, it is permanently on your record by the platform. It might just be worth moving to something brand new and trying on a new account that is completely unrelated with a different email address, potentially even different IP address. Another reason to start a new account is if you've had any inorganic growth strategies. So if you've paid for fake followers, if you've done paid view giveaways, if you've had engagement groups that you've been a part of, if you've paid for any kind of engagement or followers in the past through websites or whatever, this is a reason to definitely give up and start from scratch, and one of the most conclusive reasons to do so. But again, generally you'd want to have at least 2 of the following be true before you give up because of the incredible amount of work that it actually takes to start from 0 followers and try to scale to thousands or tens of thousands. Now I got this rough outline loosely inspired from Brock Johnson. I think it was on an interview that he had with the head of Instagram that really opened my eyes to some of these platform specific restrictions and gave me a lot of clarity as to whether someone should start from scratch or not. But it's something that we very rarely recommend to clients because again, starting from scratch, going from 0 to 100 followers even is so difficult that before you go through that massive effort, I would try literally anything else. And the bit of guidance that we give clients before they start a new account is that they have to have at least 100 days of consistent high quality posting before they do so. And the wording here is very particular. This doesn't mean you've been posting for 100 days. This doesn't mean you've posted high quality content before. This doesn't mean you've posted for 100 days straight. This means for at least 100 days straight, you have posted consistently every single day, and every single one of those days was high quality content. If you've only posted high quality content for a couple of weeks and then you take a month break, the counter restarts. And if you're starting from 0, wait until you get 100 days of high quality, consistent content before considering restarting your account again. Just because it's going to be so much easier to build up an account that already has some kind of instant distribution to a follower base of hundreds, if not thousands or tens of thousands of followers when you post a video, as opposed to posting with absolutely no one on the other side. Hey, so this is Rick, a proprietary AI agent that we created to write your content for you. So Rick is going to do the content scripts, the captions, even help you a little bit with the strategy based on the content that we have in this course, as well as thousands of data points that we've trained Rick on from top performing content on the internet, as well as millions of views that we've gotten for our clients. And Rick is actually named after an amazing social media manager that we staffed for one of our clients. Shout out Rick if you're watching this. It actually worked so well that the client wanted a second Rick. So he was asking for a second person to staff just like Rick. And we thought through just how much raw talent Rick had, like just from day one on copywriting. And instead of trying to train up a second person or a whole bunch of other people to staff for other clients as good as Rick, we just decided to train a language model. So this ChatGPT model is named after Rick, and it has worked incredibly well. It's not perfect, but within the limitations of AI and ChatGPT today, this is the best that I've seen on the market for social media. And again, this is way better than just going to regular ChatGPT for your scripts because Rick is trained on our school material, so all the videos you've seen here, as well as thousands of data points for our clients. And his context window is incredibly large, specifically for short form vertical videos that you're going to be making. So you can interact with it just by pressing the main button there. Can you give me 10 script ideas? And seeing what Rick comes back to you with, he's going to ask you a couple of questions. You're going to fill out the information such as what your niche is, some information about your audience. And then Rick is going to go back and give you 10 script ideas. And then he's asking, just let me know which one works for you. And then let's say you wanted number 3, and then he's going to break out that entire video for you line by line with a hook, a body, and a conclusion. And then he's even got a caption there for you. This whole thing is highly customized depending on what your niche is. And as long as you give Rick enough context around your business and the type of content you want to make, it's going to use those thousands of data points that we have, hundreds of millions of views across other videos to potentially and hopefully automate some of this script writing process for you. Hey, this is. Who is this?
Congratulate them for making it through.
This time travel.
Congratulations on clicking on this video.
Thanks
Hope.
for watching the full thing.
Yeah, you made it.
No, there's no way they watched the whole thing. There's no way they watched the whole thing.
Go to school.com.
Say something that, tell them to comment, whatever word you want to say right now, say that in the comments and you'll know if they watched the whole video because they're here at the end right now. No one would know that. So if there are
Yeah.
4 or 5 people
If you're a
commenting.
real one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Comment the word airplane accident.
Bro, no.
No?
Look at that. That's
Wait.
crazy. I'm not going. Caramel coffee.
Yeah, give me caramel coffee in the comment section if you made it to the end of this video. Also, what are you doing making it to the end of this video? You should have been going through this in the school course like I told you to in the intro.
Congrats on
Okay.
making it through the entire video. Comment caramel coffee if you did. And if you want even more, make sure to go to school.com.
You heard the man. Do that.
They didn't hear him.
No, they definitely heard him. You can crank the audio.
Nope. I'm not cranking anything.
All right, folks. Bye-bye.